It's now 6 o'clock, and the January 16th, 2024 meeting of the Bel Air Town Board of Commissioners Town Hall is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Krantz, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Krantz, Director of Administration and Town Clerk, and this evening we'll go around the room and announce who is here.
Jane Sudbrink, Recording Secretary.
Mary Chance, Commissioner.
Jake Taylor, Commissioner.
Paula Edding, Chair.
Steve Chismar, Commissioner.
Jim Rutledge, Commissioner.
Eddie Hopkins, Town Administrator.
Lisa Moody, Director of Finance.
Angela Robertson, Director of Economic Development.
Steve Klein, Director of Public Works.
Chuck Moore, Chief of Police.
Thank you. The first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Hopkins.
if I may, I have two items to adjust to the agenda as a result of an illness on my staff tonight. I'd like to remove under items 12E and 12F. They were topics for Mr. Small. He is out with COVID. They are not urgent topics. They can wait for another time, another meeting. So I'd like to remove them from tonight's agenda, please.
11 or 12?
It was
12.
11E and F. And those items are safe streets and roads for all, the grant program update, and discuss the permit and restricted parking on Atwood Road and Lester Way.
Yes, that's correct.
Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. Any further discussion on the agenda? All right, in that case, we will vote on the agenda. Mr. Krantz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion to approve the agenda has passed.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move that the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meetings held on December 12th, 2023 and December 18th, 2023 be approved as submitted, including minutes for the following meetings. December 12th, 2023 Commissioners Work Session Open Meeting, December 12th, 2023 Commissioners Work Session Closed Meeting, and December 18th, 2023 Commissioners Town Hall Meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Any discussion on the minutes? In that case, Mr. Krantz, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, to approve the minutes for December 12th and December 18th, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion to approve the minutes has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. And now, the Town Administrator's Report, Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any specific comments under my report. I would actually appreciate the time to plug in as my staff reports out throughout the evening. Some of my comments will be relative to that. But I did, for the purposes of the people who are live streaming, watching us this evening, and for the Commissioner's edification, Director Small, as I mentioned earlier, and then Town Attorney Elizabeth Thompson both are ill with COVID and are not present in the room tonight. Also, as Mr. Krantz alluded to earlier, I think most of the public who have been watching us have benefited from our camera operator being able to move positions as they speak, but we lost our camera operator tonight due to a serious family illness, so we are shooting from a fixed position this evening. We apologize for that, but it's working within the conditions with which we have. Other than that, Madam Chair, I'll have some other comments as we move forward, but nothing specific to report now.
Thank you. In that case, next on our agenda is the presentations. First, a certificate of appreciation for the Christmas Train Garden. Good. I'm glad. If we could have Mr. Bragg come up. Would you like to come up for the presentation? And where is that? We'll go get it. We'll go get it. And if they would like to come up, certainly, come on up. Honor everyone together. She's coming up next. She's part of the big show.
This is my brother Jay.
Nice to meet you, Kevin. Nice to meet you, Kevin. So you guys are a part of the magic. That is the train garden.
Yes, that is.
We wait for the certificate to make its appearance. I understand you guys had the greatest one-day attendance of over 2,000 people. That is huge, huge. So we, the members of the Board of Town Commissioners, wish to express our sincerest appreciation to Joseph Bragg III and his brother and his cousin, who are part of his team, in recognition of your generous contributions of time and effort in sharing your extensive train collection with the Bel Air community during Winter Wonderland 2023. We express our gratitude for the care and attention you and your volunteers have taken to construct a custom train garden that attracted more than 12,000 visitors during the 2023 holiday season. Moreover, your dedication and commitment to keeping the attraction open and free of charge to the community is recognized and greatly appreciated. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands that caused the great seal of the town of Bel Air to be affixed the 16th day of January and the year of our Lord 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There's also a photo op.
Yes.
You have to,
Oh, he did.
absolutely, absolutely.
Come on around right here.
You can stand in the front or the back. All right.
There you go. Call us on this end.
Mr. Prince, you want to take a few
I sure can.
Stand on the ledge.
That was a
And I did just want to add that Joe Bragg has given very generously of his time, his energy, and his talent to bring the magic of Christmas through his custom train garden to over 12,000 visitors, which is more than the entire population of the town. Just an amazingly huge number that came through during Winter Wonderland, and I'm sure you're planning something new for the 2024 display. It really brings, there you go. We will definitely have you back, and it is a tremendous delight to children, young and old, to see the Christmas train garden at Winter Wonderland. It's great. Winter Wonderland just would not be the same without the train garden. And next we have the certificate appreciation for Winter Wonderland. So if we could have Winter Wonderland's big three come up here. When I see Winter Wonderland, I think Patty Parker. It was her innovative idea to bring Winter Wonderland to life, and it has been a huge, huge positive for the town of Bel Air. Something that we can all look forward to during those dreary winter months. We have a town of light. So thank you to you, Aaron Hughes, who has also always been associated in my mind with Winter Wonderland. I don't know how many tags you've taken off and how many little white lights you have strung, but I think it's in the thousands, the millions maybe, and this is the 5th year. It's really been a terrific positive for the downtown area and has brought a lot of people downtown. So with that being said, we present this certificate of appreciation to Patricia Patty Parker, the chair of Winter Wonderland in Bel Air. We, the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, extend our sincere thanks for your tireless efforts in putting on the annual Winter Wonderland in Bel Air holiday celebration. Winter Wonderland, in its 5th year, drew an estimated 10,000 plus people to downtown Bel Air between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Light displays, holiday markets, live music, a train garden, visits with Santa Claus, and carriage rides along Main Street brought the holiday spirit to town and delighted the young and young at heart. We also extend our thanks to the volunteers who helped put on the events, plus the local businesses and government and nonprofit entities who provided financial and promotional support. Winter Wonderland could not happen without their efforts. Again, we thank you for your leadership and wish you the best as you plan Winter Wonderland 2024.
I just want to, is this right? I just want to do that really bad. So I thank you very much for the recognition. It's very appreciated. I just wanted to make sure that I took an opportunity to share with you some of our main volunteers and contributors that without them, we would not be doing any of this because I can't get on a ladder, so. Erin Hughes does everything and has been on every roof in the town of Bel Air. She has traversed across from the old Hirsch's to county buildings. She's done all those things. James Fitzsimmons, who actually I work with in my real job, has helped so much, and Donna Dickey, who is also a big part of our organization, which everybody knows Donna Dickey, and everybody knows how great she is and how helpful she is. Our biggest challenge every year is financial and volunteers. And in order for Winter Wonderland to be what it is, we need to remain an organization that doesn't charge the community. That is what keeps this organization and this event as nice as it is. It's a nice thing in Bel Air. I mean, look, there's no one here with a fiery torch or a pitchfork in their hand right now. I mean, they're probably coming later, but they're not here right now. It's one really nice thing. And we need to make sure that everybody understands here that this doesn't happen without volunteers and contributions from the businesses in this area. Just this week, I was complaining, maybe a little complaining, to a local business owner. He owns a brewery down the street, I'm sure you're familiar, about how much it costs for us to keep our supplies in storage. To which he responded, "Why don't you just let me store it for you?" And quickly wrote it up and just saved us $6,000. I just want you guys to understand that these businesses and these residents and these people that they're doing good stuff when they're not here with pitchforks and torches. They're doing good things. They're just not as many of them as are the ones with the pitchforks. So if we could turn that around, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
May I say a few words? I'd like to say a few words. It is unbelievable what you have been able to do. And Joe and company, the time and energy you put into that. And because of that, we have all these people coming to Bel Air and saying, we love this. And it does take donations from other groups, businesses, and if we don't have that kind of community involvement, this doesn't happen. And we drive down Main Street all during December and see it and think, oh, that's so nice, but you have no idea the amount of work that goes into it. So I want to say thank you personally. Thank you.
You want to be on a step? You want to be on a step so you can be tall?
All right, at this time, we have on our agenda the public hearing for ordinance 822-23, repealing and replacing the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 43, Code of Ethics. Do I have a motion? Oops, sorry. So at this time, we'll take public comment. Go ahead. That's a good idea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reintroduce ordinance 822-23, it was originally received by the Board of Town Commissioners on December 18th and scheduled for a public hearing this evening. Again, my name is Michael Krantz, Director of Administration and Town Clerk, and for a little background, Section 1-1409, Local Government Article of the Code of the State of Maryland requires local government entities to adopt a code of ethics for the authorities, directors, officers, and employees. The Town of Bel Air Code, Chapter 43, Code of Ethics, was last amended by the Board of Town Commissioners on December 3rd, 2018, with ordinance number 787-18. So this evening, and for the primary purpose of ordinance 822-23, it came into pass for the following reasons. The State of Maryland House Bill 363 and House Bill 1058, which were enacted during the 2021 General Assembly's legislative session, made modifications to the State of Maryland ethics law, which then in turn requires changes to local government ethics laws. So with this ordinance 822-23, the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners wish to repeal and replace the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 43, Code of Ethics, with the recommended Maryland State Ethics Commission Appendix A, utilizing their Model Ethics Law A. This will be amended accordingly to reference the Town of Bel Air and the Bel Air Board of Ethics. The adoption of the Maryland State Ethics Commission Model Ethics Law for municipalities will align the town code with the state of Maryland ethics laws. This will facilitate making amendments whenever the Maryland General Assembly modifies the state ethics laws in the future. And in addition to that, since the ordinance 822-23 was received on December 18th, our legal counsel, Elizabeth Thompson, who couldn't be here this evening, has recommended an additional amendment to the currently received ordinance. And I'm looking for that in my papers right now, and you should have it in your booklet.
It is in our booklet, Mr. Krantz, for sure. The letter from Ms. Thompson.
There it is. So in addition to the received version of 822-23, staff is going to ask the Board of Town Commissioners for an additional amendment to that, and I'd like to explain it before we open our public hearing this evening. So we're going to ask that a commissioner make a motion to repeal, obviously, the pending ordinance 822-23, repealing and replacing the Code of Ethics, be amended to include an additional section. That section would be section 4I3, which reads as follows. The board shall be empowered to issue subpoenas in the furtherance of the board's investigative and adjudicatory functions set forth herein. All requests for subpoenas must be made in writing to the town attorney and the town clerk and be signed by the chairperson. Service subpoenas shall be conducted pursuant to the Maryland rules, and all costs associated with the service of, enforcement of, or defense of any subpoena shall be borne by the requester. And our town attorney went through and described the various reasons for that. Because of its quasi-judicial nature, I think this was missing from the version of the ordinance that was submitted to you previously, and we're asking that this be included prior to the final vote and adoption. So staff would recommend that ordinance 822-23 be received as amended, and I realize you still have to make a motion, but I'm just trying to provide the explanation first. And then the State Ethics Commission would be scheduled to review this ordinance as amended on February 1st, 2024 at their meeting in Annapolis. And then if everything goes as planned, you would be able to formally review and vote on the ordinance as amended on February 5th here at Town Hall.
And that is where I thought we were, but
Yeah.
I do have just a couple of questions. I'm fairly certain that that Harford County's Board of Ethics does have the power to subpoena.
They do. It's in their rules of procedure.
I don't know, do you happen to know if Aberdeen or Havre de Grace, if their Board of Ethics have that power?
I did not look up to see if it's in their code.
Okay. And I know our council is recommending that we do this, and it's my understanding that the Board of Ethics also wishes this power to be granted to them in the new ethics code.
Yes, the Bel Air Town Board of Ethics met. It was reviewed with them a week ago, and they did give an approval for this.
Okay.
So we could, yeah, we could have
Are
the
there any
public hearing.
limitations on who can be subpoenaed?
I would have to refer to our legal counsel. I'm sorry if you're, I can't answer that. I don't know.
I did ask Ms. Thompson a couple of questions about that, and the subpoenas will be issued by the board. So they,
The Board of Ethics.
correct, so no individual will be able to just pick a person out of the phone book and issue a subpoena. It will have to go through the board, so I would certainly assume that that would help prevent any subpoenas from being issued to people that really aren't involved in whatever's in front of the Board of Ethics. It's got to be
Right.
approved by them before it can be issued.
No, I meant not who asked for the subpoena, but who you actually subpoena, the subject of the subpoena. Is there any
It would be,
limitations
it
on
would be
who-
because of us having received a specific complaint. Typically, you would hold a hearing, the Board of Ethics would hold a hearing in response to a very specific complaint. And then that person would have an opportunity to represent themselves, and the complainant would have an opportunity to represent their side. And individuals could be subpoenaed as a result on either side.
Just to make it, to me, it's more understandable if you use like a real-life type scenario. Suppose somebody said that some member of a commission was working for an entity that had business with the town and was going to be part of reviewing a contract. So if you're left with interviewing that person, they may say, no, I'm not involved. You might want to also be able to subpoena the employer or the vendor to ask them, does this person have any relationship with you? That's the real-life scenario that I think of when I would want to perhaps use a subpoena, to investigate in some other manner the complaint, other than just merely speaking to the person that the complaint was about.
So basically, the board could subpoena just about anybody?
Correct.
Okay.
If they can
There's no
reach them. I don't think they can get anybody in Bolivia, but,
Well, I mean, anybody pertinent to the case.
Correct.
So,
And that's the purpose for the board issuing the subpoena, that somebody would have to, make some sort of a case that this person should be subject to subpoena, that they have some information that's valuable.
So, my observation about subpoena power, generally speaking, is that, typically a subpoena has been a perfunctory administrative matter that gets issued, and then once a person's served with the subpoena, if they think the subpoena is abusive, then they would have a remedy of making a motion to quash the subpoena before the adjudicatory body. And so one of my concerns about this short-form subpoena power, it doesn't lay out any procedure that, in my, several decades of dealing with subpoenas as an attorney, I'm a little concerned about that because I don't want it to be left to doubt whether or not there could be the power then for the board to quash a subpoena that was administratively issued. Because I don't imagine that the ethics board would actually be reviewing all subpoena requests based upon this language. They're empowered to do so. The town attorney and clerk receives them, and then it's signed by the chairperson. So although the scope of the power is related to investigative and adjudicatory functions, I could see a good argument being made that a party is entitled to, or an interested person is entitled to request a subpoena, that they would assert they're entitled to the issuance of the subpoena. Then until there's actually some kind of at least preliminary hearing as to whether it should be quashed or not, whether it's relevant or not, would have to be heard before the whole board. Those type of just basic rules aren't included in this power that's being proposed here on this amendment. That's my number one concern. My second concern about it is that, because I do think that the interested person ought to be able to request a subpoena. If the request, typically would be signed by an attorney requesting a subpoena, someone who's a member of the bar or something like that. But if not, there should be some procedure for that. But I don't think that a request for a subpoena should have to go before the whole board to vote on whether to issue the subpoena or not. I think that ought to be laid out, but that there ought to be a procedure for, you know, how a motion to quash the subpoena would be dealt with if it were deemed to be abusive. So that's a concern. My second one is that it casts cost associated with service of, enforcement of, or defense of any subpoena be borne by the requestor. And that just brings up the age-old debate about, are attorney's fees really costs? I'd rather not be in that quagmire. I'd rather be clear about it. What are we doing with counsel fees here with the word of costs? Because there's plenty of cases piled up to the knees of the heavens about are attorney's fees costs or not. And I really think we should avoid that type of thing. So I've just got a couple concerns, so I'm not, I'm not opposed to the grant of subpoena power, because in important matters of ethics issues, certainly there should be an opportunity for the reach of that type of evidence. I'm not opposed to the concept, but I do have concerns about those two issues, Madam Chair.
I think you've made some good points, and I share some of your concerns because at least from the court perspective, they're issuing generally subpoenas to attorneys, and we have a number of rules that would prevent us, or at least, make it less likely that we'd be abusing subpoena powers. But if you just have an individual, they may not see it that way. So we also don't have the benefit of Ms. Thompson being here, and we didn't have the benefit of a work session on this because of the weather.
Understood.
So,
We
Yeah,
can,
no, I'm not trying to,
Oh.
I'm just saying that this our discussion on it, and I totally understand there's no fault of counsel here in drafting it, and it's the type of thing I think that is, that we should discuss,
we might need a little more work on it.
openly as much as possible, and then get some ideas, on that. I mean, because I'd be curious, like, what do these other agencies, have subpoena power? Do they have? And whether another government entity has adopted some guidelines for quashing subpoenas or not, I think we should have some type of guidelines, on that, for sure, so it doesn't bog down where a slew of subpoenas are requested, and then what was going to be an evidentiary hearing gets put off because of preliminary wrangling. How is all that going to be dealt with, and dealt with promptly?
I think you've made some very valid points. Any other discussion from commissioners?
Maybe more a question for Mike. Is the State Board of Ethics due to consider the legislation as written currently?
yes, it's been received by our board, the board here of Town Commissioners, and it's scheduled to go before them on the 1st of February. Now, the state board hasn't received anything about including an amendment for subpoena power because you, this Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, has not motioned,
Right.
seconded, nor voted to amend
Right.
the ordinance 822 as presently received. So if there is no motion this evening, or if a motion isn't seconded and this staff recommendation to amend fails, it just fails. And then ordinance 822 still exists, and it will go before the State Board of Ethics on February 1st.
Now, if we come back and we decide that we do want to amend it the next time we meet, would the State Board of Ethics then have to look at it again?
Every time we amend our code of ethics, I always have to send it to the state
Yeah.
for approval. This was just perhaps timely to
Mhm.
maybe give them a chance to review it before their February 1st meeting. If you as a Board of Town Commissioners are uncomfortable moving forward at this point, the worst case scenario is we just pass an ordinance a month or two in the future.
Sure.
And we would amend the code at that point, and we would submit it to the state to review a single amendment instead of an entire repeal and replace like we have before them at the moment.
All right, so,
So to be clear, if I could, Madam Chair, a question for Mr. Krantz then. Just to be clear for everybody watching, et cetera, the state, in their request for us to revamp the ethics code, did not have a mandate that subpoena power be granted to the local boards. It's not
No,
like this,
it is currently not in our, no.
and it's not being required of us by the state. This is a discretionary thing within the scope of the town commission.
Correct. It was recommended by our town attorney that this
Yes.
ought to be included.
It is not a part of the state model code that
It
we are
is not,
adopting.
it is currently not part of the ordinance 822 repeal and replace ordinance that's before you and at public hearing this evening, so.
Any further discussion? Okay. I'm going to call for a motion, and if there isn't a motion to amend, we will then put this on a work session and address it in the future. We do. Okay, we'll do it now. Does anyone present wish to make any public comment on the town code change to the Code of Ethics? On ordinance 822-23, since this is the public hearing for that. Okay. There being no public comment, do I have a motion to amend ordinance 822-23, repealing and replacing the Bel Air Town Code of Ethics? Okay. There being no amendment, no motion to amend, we will close the public hearing and move on to our next piece of business.
Thank you, Madam Chair, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Under new business, we have Resolution 1218-24, amending the civilian pension plan language in Article 2, eligibility, vesting, and benefit service, Section 2.05, benefit service. And does anyone wish to make a public comment on Resolution 1218-24? And I should have done commissioners first, but oh well. And there's nobody here. All right. Any commissioners' discussion on this?
Do we have an introduction for this?
I think Mr. Krantz probably does, and I have a couple questions, Mr. Krantz, so go ahead.
Right. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to Resolution 1218-24, the Board of Trustees for the Town of Bel Air Civilian Employees Pension Plan met on November 29, 2023, and voted to amend plan language in Article 2, Eligibility, Vesting, and Benefit Service, Section 2.05, Benefit Service for clarification purposes. The primary issues at hand is our actuary performed a full historic review of the town's pension plan benefits to ensure that the calculation of the benefit service aligned with the original administrative intent of the pension plan. And the benefit service under the pension plan, for a bit of background, is credited based on plan year, which is the period from July 1st to June 30th. A full year of benefit service should have been given for any year in which a participant worked at least 1,000 hours. During the historical review, it was discovered that for some partial plan years, generally the plan year of hire and the plan year of separation or termination of employment, a full year of benefit service had not been granted when 1,000 hours had been worked. Instead, credit had been given for the number of completed months worked. Based on this review, eligible plan retirees receive benefit adjustments and lump sum payments with interest to correct the past miscalculations. The trustees intend that the plan continue to grant a full year of benefit service for any year in which a participant worked at least 1,000 hours, and language has been added to Section 2.05 benefit service for these clarification purposes. And staff recommends that Resolution 1218-24 be accepted by the Board of Town Commissioners for reasons of historic accuracy, just so we can also keep track of amendments to our pension plan.
We already answered one of my questions, which was what was an actuary involved in taking a look at this, so that it would still be a healthy plan with this change, although it doesn't seem to be a change, it seemed to have been the intent from the beginning.
Correct.
So my other question is, I'm looking at, like, on page 2A, for a participant who is an eligible employee on July 1st, 2006. Do you see that's a very?
That's
bottom.
existing language in the plan.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
existing language.
The only language that's changing is, I can actually
Okay,
read
is the
it.
between
Yeah.
July 1st and June 30th, regardless of when?
Yeah,
Okay.
the bold caps is the only new language being added. So it emphasizes 1 full year of benefit service, and then it, in continuation of the explanation after completing 1,000 of hours, the language that was added to the pension plan includes between July 1st and June 30th, regardless of when the participant became eligible to participate in the plan and/or when the participant terminated employment. Because the concern came to be as our actuary was giving them credit, a prorated credit for each month of service, either in their hiring year or in their termination year. And they weren't taking into account that if they were over 1,000 hours, they were supposed to get credit for the full year. And the plan was always been written like that since its inception. We had an actuary originally, and that's how the plan was originally started and paid out. And when we did change actuaries, and you have to forgive me, it was more than several years ago, they have been doing it like this, prorating the hours based on their own interpretation of the language. And it wasn't discovered until just recently when this came up. So it was reviewed by the Board of Trustees, and this was the recommended solution, not only to rectify the issue and adjust benefit amounts and lump sums to rectify that, but to include this language to hopefully stop any misunderstandings in the future.
And I understand, like, the state does it the same way. I think 500 hours is a full year of credit. But here in 205, it says 1,000 hours, and then under B, it says it's credited in full and partial years and talks about months. And that looks like it's still remaining in as language?
Under,
It's on the last page, page 3, and it's the last paragraph before, and be it further resolved. Benefit services credit in full and partial years. It's determined by a fraction.
right, it is
Completed months of
possible if a
service.
person works less than 1,000 hours, it's possible.
Okay,
Yeah,
Right, that was my question.
yeah,
If you work
Yeah.
less than 1,000, you'll still be prorated on a monthly basis.
correct.
So 5 months, whatever.
That's my understanding.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the trustees did pass this and adopt it, and what before you this evening is a resolution more out of the sake of tradition, not only to inform the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, but to permanently archive this change by the Board of Trustees in our notes for future reference.
Which is certainly what you want to do and a great idea.
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
find that last paragraph where it goes back to talking about, because it doesn't say less than 1,000 hours, then you work with months, but,
I can bring that up to the Board of Trustees and ask them to take a look at it again.
I would ask them because it just, I can see how it could happen, but you've got one thing saying if you work, 5 months out of the year, you get 5/12ths, and another thing saying that if it was 1,000 hours, you get a full year, which is customary in retirement plans, but they just don't seem to work that well together.
I understand.
I did have a question, Madam Chair, if I may ask Mr. Krantz. So when I'm looking at this, I see a quote-unquote plan year, capital P, capital year. Seems like a defined term as being what would be the town fiscal year, July 1 through June 30th, in the whereas clause. And then the 1,000 hours on the amendment clearly is tied to that same period. But then later, just a lowercase year is used in the referral to the part that Madam Chair was just asking about on these months. A completed month of service is a calendar month, and before that, it just referred to in full years and partial years, and not to beat a dead horse about it, but seems to me that there ought to be, and maybe I'm just overlooking it, and that's why I'm asking you, just a clear definition that any reference to year means the town's fiscal year and not the year that the employee worked or the first year of their work or a calendar year, a fiscal year. We got a lot of years floating around.
I believe that is well defined in the definitions section of the plan document. However, I don't have the plan
No, that-
document in front of me. I didn't expect this evening's conversation to
No, that's
go
fine.
into definitions.
Yeah, well, I was assuming this is just a partial amendment. The bigger plan, takes care of all that, and the actuary is, then the trustees would have, we would rely, have already reviewed that. I was just,
I can certainly note that at our next Board of Trustees meeting to review and discuss the plan document's definition of the year.
yeah, because I saw plan year, and I thought maybe that definition came out of the trust documents but it probably says, and year always refers to this, but I just wanted to, I have no opposition to the language being proposed to, that tonight at all.
Okay.
But I've just as a point of clarification, while they're cleaning this type of thing up, if you could just check with them to see whether, just to make sure that there isn't any other ambiguity floating around out there about the definition of year, that would be helpful in the future, perhaps, if it's appropriate to inquire into that.
Yes, sir, so noted. It will absolutely be on the next agenda.
So in that case, Mr. Krantz, do you want us to move on this, or would you prefer to?
I would please respectfully request that the town board accept this resolution and vote on it this evening.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the resolution accepting the amended civilian employees pension plan language in Article 2 eligibility, vesting, and benefit service, Section 2.05 benefit service, as proposed this evening, be adopted.
Be accepted by the Board of
Be
Town
accepted by the Board of
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Do I have a second?
Second.
In that case, Mr. Krantz, call the
Okay, we'll call for a vote on on Resolution 1218-24, accepting the amended language to benefit service for the civilian pension plan. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Resolution 1218-24 is passed. Thank you.
And next we have Resolution 1219-24, amending the sworn officers pension plan language in Article 2, eligibility, vesting, and benefit service, Section 2.05, benefit service. And
This is very similar to the
Mr.
last
Krantz,
one.
it seems exactly the same to me.
It is, actually. When the plan documents were originally written, this type of language was verbatim in both the civilian and the sworn pension plans. And the similar type of miscalculation or misunderstanding our actuary had with the either prorated plan year or a full 1 year of service occurred in the sworn plan as well as in the civilian plan. So the same explanation we gave last time is the same for this one. And the points that you brought up are duly noted, and they will also be included in the next sworn Board of Trustees meeting as well, too.
Right.
But staff would recommend acceptance of this Resolution 1219-24 at this town meeting, if possible, this evening.
Thank you. And my comments would be the same as they were on the civilian pension plan. Any further comments or questions from the commissioners? Okay. Any public comment? There being no public comment, I will ask Mr. Krantz to call the roll.
Or
I'll
motion.
make
I'm
a
sorry.
motion. I'll make a motion that Mr. Krantz can call the roll on, which is that resolution 1219-24, amending sworn officer pension plan language in Article 2, eligibility, vesting, and benefit service, Section 2.05 benefit service, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Accepted, please.
Be accepted.
I second that.
Thank you.
Call the roll for the
Mr.
vote
Krantz, thank
on
you.
Resolution 121924 for accepting the amended version of the sworn officers pension plan. Commissioner Rutledge, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Resolution 121924 is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. And now we have the staffing update.
We have a laborer job available right now, if anybody would like to apply, in the Bel Air Department of Public Works. It is active and online, as well as a part-time procurement officer position is also actively advertised at the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next,
Question on that.
go ahead.
Mr. Krantz, has those have been announced, both those positions?
Both positions are posted on our website, as well as the social media site called Indeed.com.
Okay, are those just open-ended postings?
They are listed as until filled. That's
Right.
correct,
Open-ended.
yes.
And we've had no candidates yet, no applicants?
We have several, as a matter of
Oh,
fact,
okay.
very good candidates, but we haven't been able to arrive upon a final offer at this point, so we're still actively accepting applications.
Okay, great.
Public Works applications aren't the greatest right now. I think we're dealing with a little bit of people just putting in applications to make sure that they get their weekly stipend. So a lot of them are out of state and things of that nature and don't have the qualifications to meet
Okay.
the fiscal demands of being a laborer. So, but we're continuing to look at it. We get about 15 to 20 a day.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Any further questions or comments? All right, in that case, next is the calendar topic, to discuss the Board of Town Commissioners meeting frequency and time. Under the town charter, the Board of Commissioners shall meet at some convenient place in the town of Bel Air at least once a month or as often as necessary to properly discharge the duties of their office. It doesn't really, that's it. That's all we have to do. We traditionally have been meeting at 7:30 PM for town hall meetings before the construction began on the new town hall. After that, we met at various times, depending sometimes on the closing time for our venue. The library would close at 8, so we couldn't start a meeting at 7:30. We began our meetings earlier, and we had a different time that we started, I think, at the McFall Center. But largely, it was driven by circumstances outside our control, the times that our meeting spots were open. So I would like to have the town hall meetings at least go back to all the meetings to go to a 7 o'clock time. The county council meets at 7, as far as I know, is their regular meeting time. It is difficult for people that are members of the public to drive home, get their evening started, and then attend a meeting. Now, we've made some strides in fixing that by going to recorded meetings, but I wanted to have a discussion on how often we're meeting, what day we're meeting. For instance, we generally have town hall meetings on Monday, but frequently there's a Monday holiday, and then we meet on a Tuesday. I would consider moving all of our meetings to Tuesday, although I think the Board of Appeals meets on some Tuesdays. I looked at the calendar just to see. So I'm interested in hearing everyone else's thoughts on what time we should meet, what day we should meet. And generally, we don't meet in the summer as often, but we don't necessarily decide that until closer to the summer. It might be better for people to plan their summer vacation if we knew when we were not going to be having meetings in the summer. So it's sort of a think about it, talk about it, when are we going to meet, what time, what days, and what should we do as far as maybe a longer notice for people that we're going to take a break in the summer.
I agree with you. I think the 6 o'clock, excuse me, I think the 6 o'clock timeframe is a little early for our town hall meetings. I would, for people to get home from work and to be able to attend them, I'd like to see them move back to at least 7.
And the county council usual meeting time is 7 PM.
Right. And, But the working group meetings, I'm still, I don't think we need to push those forward or push those back. I know it's convenient for the staff to do them right after their workday. And I'd like to consider that into that. So I don't think we need to change the working group meetings time. That's my opinion. Dates, it would be nice to do them every Tuesday. All the meetings would be Tuesday, whether it be a working group meeting or a town hall meeting. But you're saying we have a conflict with the Board of Appeals.
I believe that's their customary working day. And of course, we don't have Mr. Small here, but I did check the calendar, and I think they meet once a month on
The first Tuesday.
a
Right.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Third, they actually
Third.
recently switched to the third Tuesday. They used to be a third Thursday, but that became a conflict with another meeting, so they switched to the third Tuesday, which under the current first and third Mondays, for the Board of Town Commissioners, it wouldn't really create that big of a conflict, except when there's like a 5-Monday month or something like that. So it happened twice a year.
Right, because I think there's one on the calendar right now that has a conflict, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about that.
I would like to speak to this. I know that you requested to have it later, and I understand why. And I wrote back when the initial request came, and I said it was fine with me to have it at 7 o'clock because I don't have another job. Well, I do have another job, but, my concern is what kind of burden that puts upon if we move it back to 7 o'clock, and if we meet twice a month for our board meetings, and then again, another 2 times a month for work sessions, what kind of burden that puts on staff and their extra hours that they're putting in. And then if they accumulate, as I understand it, if they would then accumulate comp time for the additional hours that they stay and work, and then the next day or whenever they would come in later or adjust their hours. I know that there's a limit on the number of hours that they can accumulate comp time for, yet they don't get paid for that comp time. So they have to take the time at some point in time. And I think we're putting a burden on them, and I want to be sensitive to that. So,
And maybe this is a question for the town administrator. Is that more an affect of how long the meetings run or when the meetings are?
well, it could be both, actually. It's both. And we've had meetings of late that have gone for a number of hours.
Right.
And that's my concern for them. I mean, I don't want to just be thinking about us here. I want to be thinking about the whole organization. And I want to be sensitive to that. So that's my concern for them, that we ask them to come to work 9 to 5. I think that's the right hours. 8 to 5, that's right, it's 8 to 4:30. And then do they go home and then do they come back? I think that's asking a lot of staff, I do. Whereas for you and I and the rest of us, this is a part-time gig, if you will. And so it's not our full-time job, and it adds an additional hours to their day. That's my concern. And then, as I said, they have a limited number of hours for comp time, of which if they go over that, too bad. There's no compensation there. And I just think we need to look at the whole picture, not just our meeting days and times. And I'm not trying to be hard on you, Jake. I mean,
No, that's okay.
I understand that you have this other commitment in your life and trying to get here in time. I understand that. But I just would like for us to be sensitive to the work that the staff puts in and on a daily basis. And I want to be concerned about that.
And I understand that concern, although whether we start at 5:15 or 7, it's still outside our usual workday and extra hours and comp time or whatever. I mean, it's, yeah, they're still gonna accumulate the same amount if it's a 2-hour meeting starting at 5:15 or a 2-hour meeting
No,
starting at
no.
7.
No?
No,
Why
that's
is that?
wrong.
Why is that?
No.
Most staff chooses to stay here, and usually stays. So if you move the meeting from 5:15 to 7, and staff gets off at 4 or 4:30, then 4 to 7, they're gonna be here, and then be here for the duration of the meeting. So they would be compensated for their time. If I might, Madam Chair, relative to what Commissioner Chan said, when this was placed on the agenda, I did have a chance to talk to staff a little bit about this. One of the primary concerns staff had, and this is just exploring all the options, not knowing what might be recommended this evening, was that, say, for example, if you had opted to move all meetings to one day, and moved all meetings to 7 p.m., then theoretically, for 4 weeks in a row, staff would be here for a minimum of probably 10 hours a day, possibly 12 or longer. Mr. Chismar hit on it earlier. If leaving, and again, I'll let staff weigh in too, but if we left the work session at the standard work time that where it typically is now, actually used to be at 4:30, and then it was moved to 5:15 later after I left the commissioner's table. So when I was commissioner, it was usually at 4:30 or 4 or 4:30, and then you were done by 5:30, and then somewhere along the line we moved to 5:15. My point is, if we left the work session alone, that would then give staff more opportunity to, as Commissioner Chismar alluded to, into the workday, we come into a work session, and then we go home. All of us fully understand that these meetings are for the public. They're for us to conduct business, but they're ostensibly for the public. So we really do need to lean towards a schedule that's favorable to public participation and also commissioner participation for those commissioners who are still employed and not retired. So I say that in jest. So I think you bring up a very good point. Our biggest concern was if we ran all meetings on one day, specifically a Monday, for example, that every Monday would be a 12 or 13-hour day. I think that was the concern of staff. And staff, am I articulating that fairly quickly or fairly exact? So,
I'll jump in here since I'm the one causing the problem. If we were to leave the work session alone and move town hall meetings to 7 o'clock on Mondays, that would be amenable to me. That would work.
and historically, that's what we used to do. I can't speak to whether, when I was commissioner of staff, stayed from 4 to 7, but I know by today's standards, Eileen is here, Steve stays, Chuck, because some of their folks live out of Bel Air, and they don't live a block away like I do, so it's difficult for them to go home.
Well, if 7 and 5:15 work for everybody, and we can leave the days where they are. I had also really thought that, I mean, it's your call whether you want to have all your department heads here, but when the county went to county council, the department heads that were needed went to county council, not all the department heads at every meeting. And I know often, I love to see the chief, but, you know, often there's nothing on the agenda that really involves him. Same. That's a good point. But we have downstairs, they'll come at a minute's notice. Lisa, all of the department heads at times are here for the entire meeting when there's, you know, not really that much for them to be here for.
And I don't disagree with you. The challenge I had, I thought about that same thing. My concern was the citizen who comes in under public comment and has a law enforcement related question. Our goal was to answer that question as soon as possible. And then I feel if we tell the citizen, well, we'll get back to you tomorrow, then our live stream audience doesn't get the benefit of the answer, and the citizen has to wait. So actually having the chief or Steve or the other department heads here to answer that random question that may occur, it's that kind of like.
And that's your call to make.
Understood. I just don't, I just
I
do.
tried. There is.
I certainly appreciate it.
If I may, I think it also is, as much it would be nice to be excused from the meetings. I would prefer to be here because, like the issue with the pension, Michael may have deferred to me. We worked on it together. There's been times where I've had to defer to Steve, or Steve's had to defer to me on something that's not necessarily my agenda item. But I've been needed to put some input into.
And I
so-
agree. I've seen that often at meetings where one department head has to consult with another.
And I think from my perspective too, if you will, it keeps me in the know. I mean, I just feel a part of it, and I don't feel left out if something came up or additional discussion. So for attending the meetings for as long as I've been here, I appreciate the requirement that we have to attend, because I do think it's necessary. Again, I know
Okay.
that's the town administrator's call, but, yeah, I support that as a department head.
Throwing some feedback a little bit more in there, I do appreciate it if the work sessions would be at around 5:15. One of the things that happens on my end, where my input is a lot more happening, is like I have police commission meetings, I have community meetings, I have probably 4 or 5 other meetings every 2 weeks or a week. So that kind of, and I really appreciate Commissioner Chance bringing the fact up that, yeah, the comp time, there's some time, I mean, just like this last week, if there's a storm or something happening, I'm working. You know, that's just, Steve and I are working. And, you know, a lot of times I don't even put the comp time down because I know I'm gonna lose it. So probably, I would say
I didn't hear you say that.
I lose a lot of comp hours. So I really do appreciate you recognizing that, and I think that the others recognize it too. They understand that. So I would appreciate the 5:15 for the work session. It would save me a little bit of time anyway. So, but thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I think we've maybe reached an agreement here that we will have the meetings for the work sessions at 5:15. The town hall meetings will be at 7 o'clock, and we will stick on the same days, a Monday and a Tuesday.
I'm going to ask each one of you to shake your head yes or no over there. Because I really am trying to be super sensitive to the hours you're away from your families, and that concerns me.
I could just add one more. The 7 o'clock does not bug me that much. I actually do go home a lot. I try to get that quick dinner in between the time I come back, because I'd rather eat dinner then than 8 or 8:30 or 9
Right.
o'clock when I get home. So I don't usually charge for that travel time, but my time is less probably.
Okay.
And if I stayed and worked those extra hour and a half before the 6 o'clock meeting,
All right.
you can understand what it is.
Madam Chair, for consistency, do you want us to explore resolving the conflict between Mondays and Tuesday nights if you want everything moved to Tuesdays?
If everybody's happy staying with the Monday, Tuesday, I am fine with that. I just thought for planning purposes, you know, you would have the knowledge that, you know, it's every Tuesday, so if you wanted to go somewhere for a weekend or a long weekend, you would, you know, not have that Monday meeting, but it doesn't really,
I think we're so accustomed to the schedule, and
That's
I
fine.
hate to say that, I hate to say that change is not always good, but, I think
change
everyone
can be
think-
difficult.
Change
and-
can be difficult and change can be good. That's why I'm saying we can certainly, Mike and I can certainly explore if we want to move to, for consistency, to have everything on one day, but I still think it presents a challenge, so.
And I am fine, if staff wants it to stay the same, I am fine with having it stay the same. Is anybody?
Works.
Yeah, and if I could just chime in, commissioners rarely vote or motion during a work session. You know, all the action, so to speak, you know, the votes, the motions, legislation, ordinance, resolutions typically happen during the town hall meeting, and moving that to 7 is probably good for the public to be able to come in and be there after their work hours during the day. So I'm fine with 7. And
Okay.
of course, unlike some of the other department heads, I live in town, so
Right.
I can pop home and pop back at a moment's notice. It's no trouble for me.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody have any real heartburn over that? 7 and 5:15 and, okay,
I think it's good.
all right, there you
Thank you.
go.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Next, under 11 miscellaneous A, we have Resolution 1211-23, extending the use of temporary tent permits and temporary use permits due to COVID-19 in the town of Bel Air through March the 31st, 2024. And I think, Commissioner Rutledge, this was your item?
No, I think it was mine and Mike's.
There you go.
So we put it in. No, I just, I know that we had this emergency legislation and I didn't know what it was, what it consisted of. And then I wanted to address that, to know what it was and what, you know, who was taking advantage of it. And then should we adopt any of these into these temporary measures, you know, not knowing what they were, into our ordinances and, you know, get feedback from the community, whoever's, you know, taking advantage of these, to see what they liked, what they didn't like, just to, don't want to just cut it off, you know, it runs out and then they're stuck with having to undo what they had already done. So that was it, just to have a discussion on that, what we did, what the legislation consisted of, who was taking advantage of it, and maybe should we adopt any of those measures in the future.
And we're sort of at a lack because Mr. Small is not here.
Actually,
and
he and I
There you
worked
go.
on comments
Great.
today for your benefit.
Okay.
Whether you act on it tonight, but these are, Kevin and I spoke earlier today, and if it's okay, I'll just read verbatim what we discussed. Ever since COVID altered our universe a few years ago, the town has addressed the need to socially separate patrons of restaurants and bars by allowing outdoor dining through a temporary use application that does not expire until a set date established by the town board. The current deferral of the temporary use in question expires on March 31st, 2024. I'll go off script for a second. Prior to that, during COVID, we had followed in line with the county and basically allowed outdoor dining in January 1 to December 31. For the last 2 years, well, actually, a year ago, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, a year ago, we extended that for last year. That would have expired this year. So January 31st, or excuse me, December 31st of 2022, our ordinance then would have expired. The commissioners at that time then agreed to extend it one more year, as did the county. At that time, we were kind of doing it in hand. They did it, we did it almost within a couple days of each other. Fast forward to the end of this year, as we've gotten further away from COVID, in a sense, prior to, the county did not make a decision, and we had reached a sunset date of December the 31st, and we felt we needed to. So the commissioners, earlier this year, we opted so that the businesses involved could plan accordingly. We put before the previous commissioners the request to go for 90 days to give this Board of Commissioners a chance to evaluate, see if they wanted to continue. And as we're clearly, as you've addressed, Mr. Chismore, we're quickly reaching that line. So let me go back on script. So that expires on March 31st of 2024. This exception is now only used by one business pursuant to your question, Mr. Chismore, and that business is Independent Brewery, since all other businesses have moved back inside. Z-Vault, which was the other business which primarily used this, will be making their outdoor dining permanent in a few months before March ends. They are currently in process to present that the plan to the Planning Commission so they can move forward according to procedure, law, and ordinance and protocol. Mr. Small had sent a letter last year to Independent which established the requirements for Independent to make their use more permanent. He had some of the items in the letter, unfortunately, are no longer applicable since the drop dead date was extended, and there is right now, which I was going to meet with you tomorrow on, Madam Chair, is a potential pending agreement to demolish the 2 buildings across from Independent. It's possible, and I'm qualifying that as possible, Independent may have an option to use that property pursuant to an agreement with the property owner and pursuant to the fact that those buildings will be demoed. That's assuming they will be demoed. And that's, of course, that's assuming that Mr. Bertoldi does not renew the lease that IBC currently has with Mr. Bertoldi, who owns the gravel lot between, which is across on Ellendale Street next to his automotive business. So, Mr. Chismore, to answer your question succinctly, only one business is taking advantage of this opportunity right now, and that's Independent.
And what they're taking advantage of is basically the temporary use for the tent.
That's correct. The temporary
Okay.
temporary use allows them to, I guess, certain exceptions to the ordinances, if you will, as long as that temporary use is in effect.
And could we get an overview of what those exceptions are and what that looks like?
Basically, if they were, and I may have to ask Mr. Klein to help me out on this.
Sure.
Mike?
Yeah, I could.
Sorry, let me just, I'm not trying to dock your question. They're actually a little complex and
Sure.
convoluted, and they were in place before I took this position last year. So I may defer a little bit to Mike and Steve for their help answering your
Absolutely.
question.
No, you're absolutely right. I couldn't explain the impact on development regs or zoning or things like that, but in a nutshell, I could say that typically a parking lot is intended to be used as a parking lot, you know, and when it's not, and when that parking lot is a big, large tent is put on it for, you know, typically special event purposes, then it goes through a temporary use application process for that special event, such as let's say St. Patrick's Day, for example. Many establishments put a tent in their parking lot for St. Patrick's Day, and that's granted as a one-time temporary use. It rarely happens throughout the year. What Independent Brewing has been doing since the pandemic is they have, I think, 2 very, very large tents on what would currently be parking.
Right.
You know, so that parking lot has been grandfathered into this temporary moratorium on enforcing the regulations that would not permit his parking lot to be used as a outdoor dining facility.
And one other, Commissioner Taylor, if I may too, in piggybacking what Mike said, and I'll ask for Steve if he needs help, can help me with this. The gravel lot they're using across the street is allowed to be used the way it is because it's a temporary use. If in fact this temporary use goes away and they continue to use that parking lot does not meet the appropriate specs for stormwater management and other such engineering standards that would be necessary to control water flow and so forth. Is that accurate, Steve?
That's exactly right. Off-site parking.
Yes.
There's very strict rules about like landscaping and things of that nature that they need to do. It would be a permanent parking lot.
Wouldn't it often happen to be paved and striped?
Yes.
That's correct.
Paved, striped, landscaping, and another big one is stormwater management, because right now they're indicating that they're not disturbing, it used to be pervious surface, grass and stuff like that. You can go back into the aerial photos for 20 years and see that it's basically been a parking lot for 20 years. So we really haven't changed the thing. But anyway, that would be another thing that they would have to address is stormwater management on that lot. And I think also, there have been talks from the independent brewery people to move across the street, and tear down those 2 buildings and utilize the parking on the other side of Rock Spring as a parking lot area too, where they would also need to address stormwater management and some permanent parking situations.
May I say that it's already being used for parking?
It is indeed, yep.
And I think we need to look at that. It's okay as is now?
It's okay for them to utilize that parking lot as overflow parking.
So suppose the emergency policy lapses, would there be a remedy by which a permit, some sort of process by which Independent could maintain the current tent setup that they have, or would that be, there would be no?
No, once this sunsets,
recourse for that.
then everything goes back to where it was
Okay.
prior to COVID. They would have to comply.
Okay.
And they have other additional plans in which they'd like to pursue with regard to adding a building or 2 on the existing establishment, which would also affect the amount of
Sure.
parking that they have. So it's a chess game that they're
Yeah.
trying to put in their head and do, so.
And
Okay.
I think that plan has been around for a year or more.
Yeah.
So the buildings you're talking about across the street, that's the old Pioneer Cleaners and, okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. Which we would love because they're not the best looking buildings in town and they're
No,
we'd love to see them go.
they haven't been maintained, have they?
Yes, not at all.
The Bel Air Downtown Alliance has pursued a demolition grant through the state. I'm waiting to talk to Jenny from the Downtown Alliance for an update on the status of that. She was 98% sure that it was going to be approved and it was well on its way to being accepted. But being accepted and then being for the property owner to want to continue, so in other words, there's money allowed for the demo, but whether or not the property owner wants to pursue that, that's the 2% remaining that I can't answer for you. We can't just arbitrarily tear them down, but there's money available to tear them down if the property owner agrees.
Wants to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything further on that, Mr. Chismar?
Well, I mean, we got 2 months, right, before this runs out?
Correct. End of March.
Do we need to engage with independents, since they're the only ones that this is affecting? And look at maybe a timeline to sunset this? See what their plans are? Because I just don't want to cut them off at
You don't want to
2 months.
surprise
They have-
them.
Right, they don't have an opportunity for Plan B, to implement Plan B or whatever, and see what's going on, so
I could, Commissioner Chismar, I could add to that, the Hartford County Council, instead of putting their temporary changes into law, they just extended their deadline 1 more year. So their deadline is now December 31st, 2024, and this board, you could do the exact same
Right.
thing here. We could do the exact same thing, just, approve this for another 9 months, and that would give us time to explore what you're suggesting right now is what would it take,
Right.
what ordinances would we have to pass to make this sort of thing permanent? And then your question about,
or to give them an opportunity to become compliant
yes.
with our existing regs, right?
Yes.
Or to
yes.
see if they could work out a deal with the McComas family if the demolition grant's approved. So there's a couple of options on the table for them to move. The key will be for them to make that decision to move forward. But that 9 months, as Mr. Krantz alluded to, would give all of us that opportunity to work through that with them.
So if we wanted to extend it, the resolution, we can do that in an evening, one night?
Yes, sir.
We just propose it and we could vote on it, so.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's get some feedback from them. That's my recommendation.
I agree with
Before
you.
we-
We don't want to just have them in 2 months be told, that's it.
Right.
Take the tents down,
Yeah.
you're done.
Right.
But I think it would behoove them to know that there is a final deadline on the horizon so that they can make some business decisions based on that.
Right. Agreed.
Because I wouldn't want to see them come in December and say, oh, we need another year,
Correct.
if we decide we don't want to make these permanent, which the county hasn't made them permanent, but has extended them for another year. But at some point, temporary.
Right.
We need to make a decision. All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And next, we have the review of the American Rescue Plan Act funded projects, and that is Commissioner Rutledge.
Yeah, yes, it is. I had initially asked for this to be on the agenda for the work session, and I appreciate the fact that it was, that was canceled, and because I want to continue moving along with the process here, and do appreciate what we're dealing with here is the ARPA award, and we've been provided with, sort of the status of things. And what I'm hoping to do is start the process of a discussion amongst the commissioners, and with input from staff on, really, I'm kind of a milestone-driven person in my business model, so to speak, that I bring to the commission. So I'd like to try to start to formulate some milestones on when we should actually be making some hard decisions here, so we're not like up against something and say, well, oh wow, we've been distracted with other things, and now we're like 45 days out of having to have a decision made, and that is not really, I don't think, it's not the way I would prefer us to operate. So that's why I've asked to put it on the agenda, and there's the data sheet that we've been provided. I did want to just get clarification that if there's a difference between the estimated cost and the column on the actual or committed cost, does that mean that a final decision hasn't been made to do the entire project?
No, that would mean that I left the estimated cost so everyone could see what we started with, when we first got ARPA. The actual or committed cost column is not saying that we're going to spend all of the estimated cost. So for example, Toba 1006, which is estimated cost $13,280, but the actual cost was only $3930. We are not gonna spend the difference. That project's done.
So if I could sort of turn to a bigger ticket item on the second page,
Sure.
just for my edification here and the commission and the public. The project at the top, the upgrades to Thomas Street and George Street, and other George Street and Bond, Hayes, Thomas, says board decided to move forward. And so that means that's a decision that's been made and that this board doesn't need to make or would be appropriate to make. That's in the pipeline, is that correct?
With that project, I know there was a lengthy discussion with Kevin. Steve was probably included in that discussion, and the existing board. This project has been on our CIP for a very long time. I know there's been community meetings with this area. So the board actually made the decision to move forward, meaning let's get the engineering done. And that's the $83,900 that is in process right now. So in this case, obviously there's $1 million estimated cost from Kevin, but we only have $84,000 committed, meaning there's a contract, there's a purchase order. There has been no commitment for construction, because we haven't gotten the engineering back yet. The $1 million is just an estimate. We don't have a better estimate from the engineering work.
So when that happens, then this commission would have to vote on the commitment at that time?
Correct.
Okay.
That would come back to you, an RFP would go out, or we would piggyback. And that contract, because of the extensiveness of it, would come before you.
Right, okay. Well, that helps me out a great deal, because what I'm trying to do is, commissioners, is just start to get focused on things like, well, obviously this is a project that has been, on the wish list and needs list for quite a long time. So if that $1 million estimate ended up to be $1.5 million and we're still really committed to doing it, that's why I wanted to start to weed out other projects on here that would let us say, you know what, okay, we're gonna start to knock some off the list to leave us some buffer room for higher priority projects as the commission would decide. And, so that brings me sort of to the, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that explanation very much. But from my perspective, to the other commissioners, I think it's time that we start to, don't have to really do it tonight, but we need to start to get serious about looking at what are we going to chop off the list in light of the fact that we're all quite aware intensively of the effects of inflation. And delay is not on our side in any construction project, really, that I've ever experienced in my lifetime. I don't think that ship's not gonna turn around now. So I do think we need to start to and no criticism against necessarily a project here or there, and some of these maybe, well, it's a smaller project, why don't we just leave it on, et cetera. But we need to start to make some belt-tightening decisions on that. And sort of first up on my view was I think it's time to say goodbye to the Burns Alley project. As nice as it sounds, et cetera, I just not lining up with the way I view the commitment of this capital expenditure money needs to be hardcore infrastructure that will benefit this town and the citizens of it in critical ways for a long time to come. So that was one that I have identified for myself as feeling like that just needs to be set aside and not be further considered as part of the ARPA money. But that's just to get the ball rolling on the conversation. Madam Chair.
I agree, we need to take a hard look at what money we have not committed and make sure we're spending it the way we want to spend it. And I certainly agree with you, if there are any infrastructure projects that need to be done, I mean, that's what I would do in my personal life, make sure my roof is good, my HVAC system, my pipes are okay, my electrical, because those are long-term costs, and if you run into a problem with them, you have to address them, you don't really have any choice. So I think January is our starting the budget early process as far as looking what we're going to be spending next year. We got good news today on the highway user revenue. It looks like that is not going to be cut for fiscal '25. But we don't know what else is going to, come our way. And I agree with you. The Burns Alley project is a huge chunk of money that, is a nice project, but the businesses were all terribly against it. Like, I know the Downtown Alliance, I think, really wanted it, but the businesses were just very much opposed because that back alley is their loading area. It's also, an access. There's a small parking lot there for some of the businesses that they care about. And all the electrical poles and those sorts of things will remain. Like, the pictures that I saw for the Burns Alley project did not have them on there, but they were not going to be moved. They would remain, all of that electrical stuff. So I'm just not sure that we're going to get $500,000 bang for our buck on that one. So I tend to agree with you, although Mr. Small isn't here and he's a proponent of that, so.
The electrical poles all used to be out on Main Street, this big project to move them on Burns Alley.
They did, and the businesses paid for that. I remember Dr. Street saying that they all paid to get those poles moved off of Main Street, so Main Street would be beautified.
Yeah.
And it does look very nice, but of course now Burns Alley looks like what it is, an
Yeah.
alley with, a lot of the infrastructure put back there, and the businesses do use it for loading and unloading. I don't recall a single business that was for it, in fact, but I could be wrong, but Mr. Small would be the person that would know if there was one. So I'm kind of in favor of moving that money to something else. And I would like to hear from all the staff, what are those projects that if we don't do today, we're gonna have to do in 3, 4, 5 years that are must-haves, like pumping stations, those kinds of things that we have to do, or, if we don't do it now with this money, are we gonna be looking at a large budget hole later that's gonna be a real problem to fill? And I know they said the highway user revenue is staying in, but
We'll see.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that, it's just fundamental to me that, these kind of big, heavy-duty, I'll say industrial type of infrastructure projects, while we have these funds, because this is a one-shot deal, and the interest it's earning right now adds to the fund and must be spent on the capital project under these rules, correct?
Correct.
So this is our big opportunity for the people of Bel Air to
Right.
do the, not the pretty projects, the ugly projects, the things that nobody's gonna say, Commissioner so-and-so, thank you for doing this project. They're just gonna be taking for granted that we haven't had a crisis with our septic system management or stormwater management. Everybody will just take that for granted. But I think it's incumbent to start to examine that. And certainly I think I'm all for letting people come forward and, make the pitch for Burns Alley. I don't want to just cram some decision, down people's throats, but I'm just making my evaluation of the project crystal clear for everybody. And that type of thing, I think we need to start to identify, so we knock them off the list, so we then know we've got that buffer to be able to push back in, so that if Mr. Klein comes up and, hey, guys, guess what, guys? The cost of this pumping station just went up, just like the cost of the dump truck went up. I mean, so it's just, if that's what's gonna happen, I'd rather err in favor of having that buffer as we move forward, and not always in the back of our mind still having some of these things on the list.
So, that's where I'm coming from.
Lisa, could you refresh our memory on when the commitment and expenditure deadlines are?
Sure, and I actually put that at the, towards the top of the
Oh, is it?
page, 2 lines down from where it says priority 3 on the first page.
Okay.
Because that
Thank
is,
you.
of
Perfect.
course, that is
Yeah.
important, and I was just going to actually mention that as well, is we are in the calendar year now where we have to obligate by the end of the calendar year. Doesn't have to be spent until 26.
Does that mean that a contract has to be approved?
It means board approval, contract,
Contract.
purchase order.
Okay, not like we're gonna put it to this project, we don't have a contract yet, there's gotta be a contract.
Correct.
Signed in, okay.
Yep, the treasury regs on this are crystal clear.
Got it.
That it has to be obligated, and their definition of obligated are those 3.
Sure,
You probably don't have to have all 3. I'd like to have all 3.
sure.
You know, just, we're talking the feds here and the treasury, and,
Of
you
course.
know, should we ever be audited, you know, we want to be tight with what we've done.
They're the last people who you wanna get in their
That's
crosshairs.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And I thought it was spent by the end of 25, but it's 26? Okay,
Yep, I went to the website and
Okay.
just pulled that off, just to be sure.
I thought I had those dates burned in my memory,
I
but
know, I know.
if I think 25, that'll be okay, because we'll have till 26.
I do want to just point out a couple things, if I may. So TOBA 1014 and 1015, I think very important to maintain with ARPA funding for our fiscal year 25 vehicles.
And I would put those in the category of things that, like, we have to have.
Yes.
We have to have cars.
If there was a way for me to try to figure out how to, not like to necessarily buy 2 fiscal years' worth of vehicles in the same year, because it comes back to bite you when you have to replace those, but the way vehicles have increased in cost, it certainly would be nice to get 1 more year. So that's discussion for another time, but certainly our fiscal year 25 vehicles, I would highly recommend be spent with ARPA funding. The next one I just want to mention is TOBA 1020, and I'll ask for some help from Steve on this one. I've mentioned before that this project has been the balancing project within ARPA. So it's been, okay, well, what do we have left? We're gonna throw it into essentially the sewer fund. Steve has some design projects, that, I'm sorry,
They're in design now.
They're in
and
design now.
Close to the 90%.
yep. And so you expect to get some construction costs.
In the next several months, yeah.
That's critical. That piece is very important. We need to utilize ARPA for some of these sewer projects. And Steve, your estimate is more than what I have here, I believe. It's
Yeah,
close
if
to
you
2
do
million,
yeah,
right?
yeah, if you do two.
Yeah, so we're talking 2 million.
And the project basically is, real quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Is to rehabilitate, basically a pump station that, cost $1 million to build years and years and years ago, probably 500,000 years and years ago, but now to replace, rehabilitate it, basically, it's a car, it's used its useful life, it needs to be replaced, basically, and that's what we're doing. New technology, run more efficient, blah, blah, blah. It'll last for all the taxpayers who utilize the sewer system for the next 30 or 40 years. Therefore, if you use the ARPA funds, we will not have to tax or charge the person a fee to pay for those projects in the sewer fee. So it basically helps everybody in town. That's why Lisa and I thought it would be a good project to put in, because it benefits everybody in town.
And I think those are the kind of projects that we should be, a one-time project that's got a 30 or 40-year life that's very expensive, that otherwise would be like a budgetary headache, is
Right.
really what I think we're looking for.
Yes.
the system is, like I told Eddie on several occasions, the system is really working really well, but it's just, we got a few Band-Aids, we got a few pieces of duct tape on them, but they're being checked every day and they're pumping along and everything. But it's time to, redo them, get them up to speed and have proper, call-outs and warning signals and all that type of stuff, to bring it up to today's standards, so.
And the timing is right with these projects, because as Steve said, we should be getting the construction estimates back in the next couple of months. Have discussions with you all, put it out to bid in plenty of time to meet
Have it under
that
contract.
12/24 deadline. So that's the other thing that I think we have to take into consideration is, with these projects is, can we get that accomplished? The next one is on the second page, which is TOBA 1022. We really already talked about this. This project has been on the CIP for a very long time. I honestly don't know when the engineering study is due back. Do you know, Steve?
I don't know, but I don't believe it's gonna be too long,
I
probably
didn't-
within the next couple months.
That's what I was thinking as well. So again, I think along the same line as the sewer projects, this is another one that I think staff would highly recommend.
Did you say 1023? 1022, okay, I was
1022.
like, this is not
Sorry,
making sense with
1022,
1022, okay.
Yeah, 1022, thank you.
All right.
And just another one I think we really need to keep on our radar as being a recommendation.
When,
Yep.
when might we get the engineering estimates back on that?
Steve
I
is,
think a month or two. Kevin has been more
Right.
closely working with
Yeah.
the engineer on that, so.
Because it seems like a lot of stuff for $1 million.
Yeah, it is,
And-
it's a big
It's
project.
It's a big project, and it
It's a big
doesn't seem
project.
like,
and
you
there's,
know,
it's 3 phases all at one time,
right.
which is unusual.
So that bill, we got to take a look at, that bill may be higher than a
There's a
million.
lot incorporated
It's
into
possible.
the projects,
Yeah.
under
Okay.
management, and a lot of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
That's
even
why-
if, and I think Kevin has said this, even if we can accomplish 2 out of 3 phases, accomplish what we can. I think phase 3 is phase 2 looks like it's the least expensive. Phase 1 is the most. But yeah, we'll be able to take a look at that once we get the engineering
Okay.
study back. Then the next one, let's see, is TOBA 1030. That, I think, may be further down on the agenda for Steve to give an update on the. All right, so I'll leave that one alone. We already talked about TOBA 1031, which is Burns Alley.
Tell you the number's a lot bigger than 303.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. TOBA 1032, new playground services for Plumtree Park. That's something that, we need to circle back with Kevin. It doesn't even have a fiscal year on it. So it's really up in the air.
Is this the new surfacing like there is at Shamrock Park, that rubberized type of
I
thing?
believe so, yes.
Okay, and the rubberized one hasn't been there that long.
That was
No.
just this past fall.
No.
Right, that's what I thought,
Summer, fall.
okay.
No. And then the only other project on here is the TOBA 1034. Again, that was a priority 3. It doesn't even have a fiscal year associated with it, so again, another project that needs further discussion to either, move forward or at least get some more information on.
Lisa,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may, and Lisa, if I may, TOBA 1023 was an agreement we reached with the county.
Right.
So we had committed to the comfort station for that 100, the 250 was estimated, that's on the county. We're only obligated to the county for 175,000.
Yeah. What Lisa was saying was not matching up with what Project 1023 was, which is why I.
Yeah, sorry.
I was,
I got ahead of
so
myself.
I knew I was on the wrong line. I remembered that was an agreement with the county, and it's nice to get the trailhead there for people that use the trail.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think if nothing else, it sounds like within the next couple of months, we'll have some further information for you all on the sewer estimates and with the upgrades to Thomas and George Street. And And I think with those two being fairly large pieces of this, that will be a good time. I know Burns Alley as well. I mean, Kevin, I think the engineering on it is 85,000, and he's been holding that aside, not moving forward in that project. That would have to come before you anyway for approval. So, you know, we've held back on that.
And I can't remember if 500,000 was the whole price of the project?
It was.
It was the whole price? Okay.
At least that's the price now that included engineering, but that's
Mhm.
the estimate that, you know, Kevin provided at the time.
Okay.
So I hope that all helps and answers some of your questions and.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And-
You know, I really appreciate that, appreciate the discussion, and anybody else wants to, obviously, Madam Chair.
And the
put any
remainder
input
to
on this, so we
commit.
can keep rolling and
I'm just
keep
gonna-
this on the radar for the work sessions too.
I was just going to ask Lisa one more. The remainder to commit is about $3.8 million, so that is like unspoken for money?
Correct.
Okay. And we pretty much, just for the benefit of everyone else, we have been spending this money only on one-time only purchases because it is not a continuing revenue stream, so you don't want to commit it to
Correct.
anything that is going to continue, so.
That's correct. And with that, just a clarification, yes, 3.8 million remainder to commit, but that doesn't include any further commitment for Thomas and George Street, for the sewer.
Right.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Okay.
Right? Because if you
Right.
look at page 2 at the end of the column totals, we've already actually, if you want to take TOBA 1022, have actually only committed $83,900.
Correct.
That's it.
Right.
But the project is estimated at $1 million.
Right.
So
That number,
moving-
3.8, would be way smaller.
Correct.
If we
Correct. So
go
I just
through with
wanted to
that.
make sure we were on the same
Got
page with that.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So just a couple questions. Lisa brought out TOBA 1006 about the wireless access budgeted at 13.2.
Yes.
Now, is that project completed at 3.9?
It
So there's
is.
about 9,300, 9,400 that gets thrown back into the pot.
Mhm.
So the actual or committed cost column is a combination of, it didn't cost that much, but the project is done,
Mhm.
and, oh, we haven't finished the project, so that's all we've committed.
Correct.
Like the Thomas Run.
two of
Well, I mean,
those,
like the
yep.
Thomas Street.
Yep, there's some projects that are completed.
Right.
And some projects that are committed thus far, but have more
Right.
to go. And what I can do, if it would be helpful, is, I can go through the projects, before, you know, we talk about this next time, and just add maybe a completed column. I can do
I
that.
think that would be really
Something-
helpful,
Yeah,
so that we
something like
know.
that, since it's-
Absolutely, I can do that.
Because the difference between, $1 million and 83.9 is a huge number.
It is.
Right. But then again, do you also need to do something about when you have like, for that one example,
Mhm.
006, you have that 9,000, well, the estimated cost was 13.2. That shows up in your summation of total priority 1, right? I mean, if that project is completed, you see on page 2 where you have
Mhm.
total priority 1 was
Right.
9.5, 9.49. But it's really, say, 9K less.
Well, that's.
Should you
and
should
that-
you update, I'm just saying, should you update the estimated cost to actually be
I-
3.93 instead of the 13?
I can do that, but in all honesty, I always wanted to maintain that estimated cost, because if somewhere down the line, somebody asks,
Okay.
well, here you all new board, well, what were the projects to begin with? If I were to, remove those, I would not have been able to tell you, that information, assuming that you may want to know that. So again, it's just information. Don't mean for it to be confusing if it is. If it is, I can remove it and I'll keep that spreadsheet for myself, because it's good for me to know going forward. So I can certainly do whatever you
Right.
all would like. That
Well, if you-
9,000 that's left is in that $3.8 million number
Right.
at the bottom.
Okay, no, I was wondering, if you need to keep the estimate, then could there actually be an actual column and a committed column? Or does that make,
But committed is really actual too. I mean, they're one,
Well,
they're
but
one
it's-
and the same. Once it's committed, it's actual. It's
Completed.
not going
well,
anywhere.
or what would you call the difference between the estimated cost for the Thomas Street, the 1022, and you've only partially paid out? You understand what I mean?
Yes, the
Where you've only
83,
had a partial payout versus,
I understand.
okay.
I understand. So, but you wouldn't want me to remove that $1 million and make it 83.9.
No, I'm saying that would be, I guess what I'm saying, you have the estimated, you have the actual, what's committed is, the actual may be, say, 1.2, once you get an estimate back.
Right.
But you've only expended 84. That's what you've committed so far to the you understand?
It is, and
Or
that's why.
paid out, or whatever you wanna, you
Yeah.
know what I'm trying to,
I think I do.
what's been
but-
paid to date as opposed to,
Well, I'm not getting that detailed, because some of these have not been paid to date. We haven't paid $83,900 to date on this. But we've signed a
Okay.
contract, and I have a purchase order, so it's committed.
so it's committed.
But it hasn't been paid.
Okay.
Those are, in my opinion, way too many details. You guys don't want to know
No,
that
I don't wanna know
stuff.
that, no. But your definition of committed, my definition,
So think of committed the same as obligated.
exactly.
There's a
obligated.
contract for it.
There's a contract, right.
So if you think about it in those terms, I don't know if that helps. And like I said, it might help to see a completed column by, so bless you, to see
Okay.
by those projects. And I could maybe add another column and put, for the completed projects, put them in the actual column. For the uncompleted projects, put them in the committed column.
I think if we know that the project is completed, then we know that the difference is a positive one. And if
Okay.
the project isn't
Right.
completed,
Right.
then we know that the difference is a negative
Okay.
one.
Okay, again, trying to make
All right.
it
A
easy for
simple
you all to.
spreadsheet,
It is,
right.
without too many columns and
And it's
muddying
not
all
simple.
this.
Right,
Right,
okay.
Because this is convoluted as it is.
yes. And you've done a wonderful job with it. And
Thank you.
And bringing us up to date on where we stand.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So moving on to our next item under 11 miscellaneous, we have review appointment protocols for town boards, committees, and commissions.
Yes, Madam Chair, I asked for this to be put on the agenda. So we have a number of, spots to fill or to be considered on these various committees and commissions that we make appointments on. So, there's been inquiry, from the public about, hey, I'm interested in applying for this or that, how do I do that? And so I'm just, thought that we should have a discussion about how this commission wants to handle those things. Some of these, all of the committees or the commissions that we make appointments on are important. There's no question about that. Some of them are frankly much more high profile for the public and for the citizens of Bel Air. So, for example, the Planning Commission, I think there's an expiration of a term for one of the members coming up on that. We have a vacancy on the Ethics Board right now. We have a number of Commissioner Chance has brought to our attention with some recommendations, et cetera, on committees as well. And for the cultural arts, the elderly and needy citizens. And so it's just, from my perspective, as a newbie on this commission, coming in from the outside, my perspective is to the extent that we can, make it clear to the citizens of Bel Air, here is a spot coming up. No, there will be a process if you want to apply, what that process is, and then whether there are, resume reviews or application reviews and interviews or whatever the process is. I think it's important to the transparency So people feel like they have the opportunity to be involved and actually have an opportunity to be involved, have feelings about it, but also see in reality that they can ask to participate, and that there'll be a process by which the applicants will be considered. And I know on some of these, it's hard probably just to recruit anybody to want to do it. So there's a couple applications on the Historic Preservation, Commission that, I'm assigned as a liaison to. And so, I was asked, by our, contact, our staff member with planning to say, should we ask the people who were currently there if they're interested in being considered for renewal? And I'm like, well, yes, absolutely. But by the same token, I think it's good to, ask them, are they interested in renewal? But, there's no guarantee they would be renewed. That's a decision the commission needs to make. And if other people in the public want to apply for those, I think that'd be great. And I think there ought to be, but things are moving, pretty quickly, just like they've come up that Commissioner Chance has pointed out. So, there's a pressure, certainly in the need to prudently move at an appropriate pace, depending upon what the vacancies are, and make people know that, their participation is very much appreciated, that we need help across the board on all these commissions and committees, but doesn't necessarily have to be certainly decided tonight. I mean, this is the kind of thing I think we can probably even make a decision on, at a work session, because it doesn't need an ordinance on it. But I wanted to open it up, and just because things have been done one way in the past or et cetera doesn't mean we should just continue on with that. But I think it's really important that the people of Bel Air, have an opportunity to, put their hat in the ring for it.
We've had a couple of people, at least one lady came to a meeting, Commissioner Chance, and was speaking about, like, she'd like to volunteer, but she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. She didn't know you could. I think some of our committees, the news doesn't get out there that they're around. I was looking at cultural arts. They can have 9 to, I forget, 12 or something like that. They're currently at 9. But, if one member moves or resigns for
Right.
whatever reason, then there's a mad scramble to get, that 9th person. So I was thinking that it would be nice to have, for every committee that we have on the webpage, a list of, and this is like the next thing on D, like adding the names of the members and their terms, and also maybe something brief about, they meet the 3rd Wednesday at 2:15. The committee has to be, basically what's in our code, has to be a
Sure.
resident or doesn't have to be a resident, and they can have between 9 and 15 members, in case somebody wanted to join the Cultural Arts Commission.
I don't have a problem with anything that you're saying. That I think if we could put on our website, list out each one of the commissions, list out when they meet, how many members we want to have, and say exactly what you just said, and invite people to participate. There's no problem with that whatsoever. I do have some people right now who are interested in being on cultural arts and what has formerly been called the needy and senior, elderly and needy,
citizens.
and we want very much to change that name.
Who wants to be in that group, right?
Yeah, and fortunately, the elderly person on the commission here gets to be the liaison to that board. But all kidding aside, I think that name definitely needs to be changed. But there are a group of individuals who are very, very committed to that commission.
And
And-
we're really fortunate because that committee lost a lot of members. There was COVID, it didn't meet, it had
Right.
some problems, it's lost a lot of members. And you and Mr. Hopkins have done a great job in finding some folks that really have some skills in
And
that
they
area.
want to meet monthly now.
Right.
They really have some
That's
issues
great.
they want to address. So I think it's a matter of, can we put on our town website the list of all the commissions and what their mission is. And I think that we may actually get some more people that would be interested. And, you know, it's a commitment. They meet, they have regular meetings, and
That's why I would like to add, you know, they meet,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, once a month on a Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. so that people are sure they, you know, before they start, that
Sure.
it fits their schedule and
Sure.
they can do it.
Yeah.
And I would like to see when we do have openings, to put it on our website. You know, we have, you know, we're seeking members of the elderly needy citizens or whatever it is, to maybe draw a wider group than just who we know.
Right. I wanted to draw our attention to Havre de Grace, which has a publicly accessible spreadsheet of everyone that serves on their committees, as well as the expiration date. And that might be helpful for, you know, so that we can avoid a mad scramble that say we know that in 90, 120 days, whatever we want to set it at, we know that in 120 days this term is going to expire. Okay, well, we're now in, you know, the process of looking for someone to fill this seat because this term is going to expire. And certainly the incumbent is welcome to reapply and, you know, put in their information, and they may well get it because some of these folks are the most committed individuals I've ever met, and they really are the best choice for the job. But I think that might help solve both of our problems of, okay, here's a good way to make sure that the process is orderly and that we're doing it in a timely and manageable manner, but that it's also efficient and that it's also transparent. So that's something to think about. I liked what Havre de Grace has on their website.
What I'm hearing is we can ensure that for every board, committee, and commission, we'll have names, term dates, meeting dates and times, the number of members, the application / application process, which we may still establish going forward, but certainly at the bare minimum, the application that we use now. We can link it to our code so people know what the code requirements are, as well as a general summary of that. We will post the openings on the website, and lastly, I can create a web page that would consolidate all the appointed officials, their board, committee, and commission, and their term dates in one place for everyone to be able to just click one link and see it all at once.
That'd be great.
Madam
So-
Chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Mike, were you through?
Nope.
Okay. I know for several of the boards, we do have, Mike has pulled up boards, committees, and commissions on our website, and at least several of the boards do list all the members, not their term dates, but the members. And it does say if you're interested in volunteering for this commission, please call and list the department that handles that committee, as well as the meeting times and dates. So a lot of the things that you did mention are available on the
Correct.
website
It
currently.
is for some of them, but not for
Not
all of them. We
consistency.
sort of want to make it the same across the board.
Yeah. It is inconsistent. There's inconsistency amongst some of the pages, and we will strive to rectify that quickly.
Some have names, some don't have names. Some,
Yep.
And Michael, when you say announce, how would we announce an opening? Would it
Oh,
be an
well,
article?
currently, right on the homepage of the website, there's a quick link to careers and volunteer opportunities. And they could be listed right there, as well as in any number of ways. We could also share that in the spotlight. Whenever there's a prominent opening that needs filled quickly, we could share that in the spotlight, and then that can then be shared on social media, and the link would link back to the website, which would link to the application, which would direct a person to what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think doing it on Spotlight would be doing something there. And even periodically, just saying, hey, if you're interested, just to do, volunteerism within the town, an article on that or something like that to keep people aware, because a lot of people still use, or do use that. The other thing is, a lot of people are, for each commission, a lot of people have what's that automatic, you send out an automatic email about when an upcoming meeting and the
Yep.
agenda and stuff
That
like
happens when you post a spotlight, or you post a career or volunteer opportunity opening, it auto sends that notify me to anyone who signs up.
Oh, it does do it for openings like on a commission?
It does,
Okay,
yes.
all right, I was gonna.
Well, it
recommend that,
would,
but-
it could, we currently
Oh.
don't do it now.
Oh.
So to your suggestion, we will.
Right, I would do
Yeah.
something like that also.
Yeah.
If they're subscribed to that commission or committee, then when there's an opening, send it out. That means they're interested.
Yes, will do.
All right. Anything further at the moment on this topic?
Just, I think from a process standpoint then, Mr. Cranston, the applications as they come in could be, periodically emailed to all the commissioners so we could, see them. And that way we'll see where the information is, as well as, that way as, it would seem like, almost like a standing agenda item on the work sessions should be commission spots to be filled coming up within the next whatever,
That's a good
45
idea.
days or
We
60
should-
days. There's
we
sort of
should-
like a standing point, so
we
we
should pick
always
some
have to
trigger.
discuss it.
We can add that to the staffing portion, then that can be part of staffing.
It would be a good idea to pick a trigger. Do you want to pick, 3 months, 6
Outstanding.
months? Like what seems,
I'd go at least 3 months.
I was
3 months
thinking
out.
90 to 120, 3 to 4.
At least.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to fill.
I know.
Start doing the
And then,
announcements.
sifting through all of them, and then talk to your finalists, however we want to do it, and then, we're right up on, oh, well, the term has expired, and so, yeah.
I know, and there's some that creep up on you pretty fast, and we got a few to fill. So we're thinking 4 months, start with a 4-month trigger?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I do, just because I know that there's ethics rules, et cetera, things that Mr. Krantz, right, that they have to complete before they actually get to sit down, get sworn in, and actually participate and vote.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah, okay, so I think the 120-day lead time would be appropriate considering that.
Do what we can. And
Yeah.
if
Right,
they
yeah.
don't come, they don't.
But
come.
I don't mean to apply that retroactively to the spots that need to be filled or the applicant. I'm talking about a moving forward kind of
Right.
process.
For instance, I think about half of Appearance and Beautification's term has already expired, so we might move on that more expeditiously.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I don't at all mean to,
Yeah.
to suggest that. I'm
Certainly.
talking about a policy moving forward down, to
Okay. Well, I
start to
think-
tee this up.
I think we're all on the same page on that. And we've really covered D, which was review the web pages for the boards, committees, and commissions, and just add members' names and term dates. So I think we're all on the same page on that. E and F have been moved to when Mr. Small can be here to address them. And next, we have the McCormick Street Stormwater Management Update, and I'm glad I'm sitting down, Mr. Klein.
Yes, when the meeting was scheduled for last Tuesday, I kind of put together a short PowerPoint presentation. It was kind of done to help bring up to speed the new commissioners to what, started this whole process and so forth like that. Do you have time for 5 to 8 minutes, quick presentation, or would you rather me just go real quick?
I am good with 5 to 8 minutes.
Yes.
Okay?
I am. I'm going to try to do it as best I can. You're at the end.
I'm going to bring down the screen so the home audience can see it.
You're at the end.
So as long as it doesn't fall on, as we sit here.
Then we'll have some real vacancies to
Yes,
fill.
yes, we will.
Can you start it from the beginning, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It didn't do it. There we go. Very good. Well, McCormick Street Drainage Improvement Project, we have a situation over in McCormick Street that tends to flood out an individual house when we have these very extreme, heavy downpours. Next slide, Mike, please. So what we're talking about is extreme rainfall events. So what defines extreme rainfall events? David Novak, he's a weather forecaster for National Weather Service, says While there is no single definition of extreme rainfall per se, a good benchmark is a month's worth of rain in a given location falling in one day. Next slide, please. So we had two back-to-back extreme rainfall events in June and July of 2021. On June 3rd, 2021, we had 4.41 inches in 2 hours. It was a heavy thunderstorm, and it just trained over us for 2 hours, and it was very heavy. We had a lot of street flooding. We had some manhole covers that are on the storm drain systems that were popped off. The entire system was inundated. Next slide, Mike. Just 2 weeks later, on July 12th, 2021, we had 2.8 inches in 1 hour, 15 minutes. Again, this is a 100-year rain event, and the systems are supposed to be designed for a 10-year event. So this is something that's out of the ordinary, and since that day, we have not had a rain event like that, and we're moving on 3 years. So I just wanted to throw that in. This is what happens when you have rain like that in town. This is
Wow.
at Lee Way in Pennsylvania, right at the bottom of Shamrock Park. No, it's not Yellowstone. It's right here in Bel Air, right by the tree grove. And that's the kind of rain that was going through that day. Next slide, Mike. This is at 404 McCormick Street. This is the street in question that has started the process. This individual yard gets flooded when we have these extreme rain events. And you can see the water coming down through the neighbors. There's back-to-back streets here, and you can see how the water just flows down the backyards of all these homes, and they end up in this backyard. And as you watch it, you'll see what really happens when it gets to the dam, which is basically the sidewalk in the street. It fills up his yard to about a foot of water right there. You can see right there's his house, and it goes out to the garage and then up to the street. And you can see the street is not flooded at the time, so it's actually in just his property, not in the actual street itself. And this, by the way, was taken by the homeowner. Next slide, please. And I wanted to show you this. This is the same area, 404 McCormick Street. And this was after heavy, you can see all the rain coming from this extreme rain event. You can see the water down in 404 McCormick by his garage. I've not been in the home when this event happens, but Mr. Rowe does say he experiences water inside the house. I have not seen that. This is going to show you that the actual drainage system is working. It just can't keep up with the volume of water that's occurring at the time. So we have one drain there, and we have one drain on the actual property itself. This system was put in approximately 50 to 60 years ago in town when it was developed. Next slide, Mike. As a result of those flooding events, the town in the spring of 2022, at a cost of $6,500, put in this drain. This was the drain that we saw just last, where there was a little whirlpool going into it. We put this drain in because we knew that it would help allow more water to enter the system more quickly, hoping that it would reduce that flooding faster and maybe not build up as much. This picture was taken on the afternoon of January 9th, a week ago today. We had 4.124 inches of rain in a 12-hour period from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and that's the rain that came through the yard. So it's not, and that's over a 10-year storm, that 4.124, and that's what the system's going to be designed for. But you can see that we had no problem keeping up with the heavy rains on that day. Next slide, Mike. This is another thing that we did as a result of this problem. This is at Harlan Square Condominium. We installed this on the spring of 2023 by the town of Bel Air. Cost was $55,000. It gave us credit for our MS4 of 4.2 acres for MS4, which is a big deal. That helps us really with the mandate that the state makes us do to treat so many acres of stormwater each year. The video shows how the riprap slows the flow of heavy rain. And again, this picture was taken last Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. The thing that we're trying to do here is when their whole parking lot drained down a swale before. So when it rained real hard like that, it rushed down into Mr. Rowe's property at 404. What this does is it slows that whole process of getting from point A to point B and hopefully allows the system to drain easier without the inundation from the water moving into the system so quickly.
If
Next
I
slide.
understand you right, the water was just coming too fast for those drains to handle it.
It was in a swale.
So by slowing
went
it down-
straight we slow it way down, spread it way out, and by the time, from the top to the time that it gets to the bottom, it takes a lot longer than it used to.
And then it doesn't inundate those
As
drains.
Quickly, right. Slows it down and hopefully slows it down enough that it relieves some of the pressure on the system. Next slide, Mike. So here we go. The other day, I received them from KCI, and that's who we've hired to do the McCormick Street drainage improvements. We received the 60% design drawings for the project. Next slide, Mike. This is the existing condition plan, and I know there's a heck of a lot of information there, but that's basically the existing storm drain system that we have. Next slide. And this is what they've projected for us to do, to build it up to a 10-year plan that meets the current standards of Harford County for a 10-year storm.
So the current system that's there does not meet the 10-year
It
standards?
does not, because there was no standards when
When it
the
was built.
system was built. And I can add, we're not required to do this, bring it up to a 10-year standard. It's been talked about on many, many municipalities, cities, states, and so forth. Is the municipality responsible to bring the existing system up to the current standard because of a situation like this? Next slide, Mike. So, I know you can't read that, and I just wanted to let you show, that basically shows how many new manholes are gonna be put in and how many new inlets are gonna be put in for this new system. So there's gonna be 25 inlets built for catching all the storm water in this area, 16 new manholes that will be put in the streets, and 2,676 linear feet of pipe to do that. Next slide. This is the big one. This is the 60% cost estimate.
Oh,
You can see
wow.
at the bottom, $1,443,845. This, again, this is the 60%. It's probably gonna move a little bit when we get to 90% plans. But, you know, that's the ballpark we're in. It's actually a little more than I thought. I was in the 1.2, so anyway, things are going up. Mike, next slide. So McCormick Street drainage improvements moving forward. So we're completion of design and final estimate we're gonna get hopefully in February from KCI of this year. Preparation of construction drawings for bidding will be done in March of '24. And then we as a group have to determine the funding source. You know, where are we gonna get funding to come up with 1.4 million? Do we wait and get a grant? Do we utilize some ARPA money? Do we go out and get a loan? Those things are getting a little tougher now because the rates are going up. So that'll be a decision once we get that preparation of construction drawings and ready for bidding.
And we also have the option of not proceeding with this project.
That is correct. That is correct. I do want to add on that. I know that I've kind of leaned in the direction of, you know, do we spend this kind of money to help one or two individuals in the town? 1.4 million to help one man or one or two families. This system is eventually going to fail. It's a system that's built with metal pipe, and the metal pipe starts to degrade and rust and so forth like that. So eventually the town will, in probably the next 20 years, have to replace this entire system. So is it a good time to do it now? We'll kill two birds with one stone, whereas we'll improve the infrastructure in this whole area of town, and then we won't have to worry about it for, you know, 50 or 60, 80 years in the future. So I just wanted to add that.
Can you tell me how the rain that we got on January the 9th of this year compares to those rain events from July 2021? Were they similar?
No.
Okay.
Reason they're not similar
Because it
is
was over a
that-
longer period of
Yes.
time?
These are real quick, like, for example, the ones that hit Owings Mills, I wrote a little note down there. It was over 6 inches in 1 hour that caused those not Owings Mills,
Ellicott City.
Thank you. I had Ellicott City, I just don't have my glasses on, Steve. But, yeah, they're the kind of rain, 6 inches in 1 hour. And I think the other one that they had was over like 10 inches in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So they're the kind of storms that we're dealing with.
There's really giant
And
ones.
some people say we'd never used to have them, but, who knows, And
I don't know.
we might not have another storm like this for 15, 20 years. Or we can have 3 next year. So it's
We
one of
could have
those
3 next
situations.
week, you just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with this because I know the prices are so high.
Yeah.
But, and the, one homeowner,
Yeah.
but the system that's there didn't need to be built to meet the 10-year storm standard when it
Right.
was built.
Right.
But it was built with corrugated pipe, which back then even wasn't what it was supposed to
Corrugated
have
metal
been
pipe, right.
built with, so,
And we discussed that.
Yeah.
The project called for reinforced concrete pipe.
right, right.
And somewhere along the road that got changed. How did it happen?
And it just, you're right, and that,
We weren't here. But anyway, it did happen, and we did have.
that is a problem because it won't carry the water as quickly because the corrugation
The
slows it
coefficient-
down,
The
so,
coefficient is affected by the correlation, yeah, rather
Right.
than the smooth concrete pipe.
right.
So,
So that is another, it's not sized for a 10-year storm. It's not the construction material it should have been, so it's got like a number of problems. I feel for the homeowner because there's nothing he can do.
Right.
It's not like he can redirect his, roof gutters and, it's very little, there's nothing left for that man to do. And,
yeah,
Ellicott City too, I mean, it wasn't their fault per se, but eventually they did do a very large project to
Very.
address their flooding problems that they had
And-
for decades.
they don't know if that's gonna work.
I think
And I
this,
can tell
this
you
would
right
work.
now, if we have 6 inches of rain in 1 hour, this might not work. And Mr. Rowe might have some water in his garage again.
He'll have a lot of company
Yeah.
at 6 inches in an
Yeah.
hour.
So, anyway,
So the improvements you did make, how do you think that will fare?
we
What-
don't know.
Don't
Because we
know.
haven't had one.
We haven't had
We
one,
think
okay.
it's gonna help. And we also did other things to help him along the way. It's not like the town has said, we're not gonna help you at all.
No, the town has
Right.
been very, very responsive
Right.
to Mr. Rowe, and he appreciates that.
And we've also helped several other people with similar situations by doing little things to improve the ground and stuff like that, where they're no longer getting flooded. They did not get flooded during these 2 storms in 2021. And what we did to Mr. Rowe too is, when the water's flowing down the drain pan, it was able to hump over his driveway and go down there and just exacerbate the problem. So we built up that driveway apron to make
To
it
get
more like
higher.
a dam to prevent the water flowing in the gutters to get into his driveway.
Right, let the street water flow.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly right, Steve. Yep.
If we were to get, say, 5 inches of rain in an hour, that type of storm, what do you think would happen to this system?
Now or in the future?
Now.
It would do the same thing, probably. We just wouldn't be able to handle it. And that area, the fishbowl is what I sometimes refer to it, because it is kind of down in there, and it's a
Right.
fishbowl,
Right.
and the water goes into it, and it just can't get out quick enough, and
Mhm.
that's why it fills up a little bit.
So it would be similar to what we saw on the
Yes.
screen? Okay.
Yep. Yep. I think so, but I don't think that I don't think that the improvements that we made are gonna be affect a 5-inch rain. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's gonna help, but I think you would still get some wet feet.
Well, I guess what I'm really curious about is, with this dated system, I mean, is there a danger of a particularly bad rain from causing this to go into catastrophic failure sooner than we
I
thought?
don't think so.
Okay,
That-
that was,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Okay.
there's my thing.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. If
And
anybody
thank you for,
wants-
I'm very impressed with the PowerPoint presentation, and,
If anybody wants to look more closely at these, where you can see them, you're welcome to come by. Or if you need that one page with the estimate on there, you're welcome to get that one too.
all I needed was that bottom number, and I was glad I was sitting down.
We all had bets when it came into the office, and
I knew it was gonna be big.
none of us got it right.
I knew it was
Higher
gonna
than
be
what
big.
we all thought, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for all you have done out
Yeah.
there, because I have gone out actually and taken a look at the new grates and the swale that now has the rock to slow it down, and
It's, yeah.
you've done some things that, you know, should help, but,
Yeah.
all right, we'll take a look at that.
We are definitely not running away, and if it's decided not to do something, we're just not gonna turn our backs at it. We'll just keep watching and think of other things that we might do.
All
The
right.
thing that we can't do, I mean, easy things we could do is put like a big pipe in the middle of the road from the low point of where the water's holding and shoot it down on the neighbors, you know? And you just can't do that.
That'd be very unpopular.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
All right.
there you go. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all your work you've done on it. I know it's been a lot.
May I ask one question? Yeah, so just to be clear, the figure you just laid out, that is not contained in any of these numbers on the ARPA report that we looked at before, is that correct?
It is somewhat,
Somewhat, okay.
and I think it was 300,000, and that's where
About
I made a
1.1
comment
million
that.
shy.
Yes.
No,
But it's also in 1020?
10:30.
1030?
Yeah, it's about 1.1.
oh, I see, yes, okay.
I thought she was
Thank you.
also got 1020. I'm not sure that was anything. Okay, separate.
It's the same number you gave me.
All right, moving on, we have discussed the Bel Air Police Department reporting. You know, the chief is here at every meeting, and one of the biggest topics, of course, in any town is, you know, what's our biggest crime problem, what's going on, what is our town police department doing? And I know you're doing a lot of things for pedestrian safety, for our retail theft problem, and I thought I would ask if you would be interested in reporting on the schedule of your choosing. Certainly nothing that's like an ongoing investigation, but
There you go. Absolutely. I think since we're televised now, it could be an even better source for us to get information out, because right now, we pretty much rely on our Facebook page to get the message out.
which is where I saw the video about your retail theft operation.
Yes,
Very
yes,
impressive.
Yes. So getting it out, it's just another venue for us to say, hey, you know, if you want to come up here and be a criminal in the town of Bel Air, and this is a message we can put out right now, just realize that we have an average response time of 2 minutes, and we have an excellent relationship with the retail personnel there. Maybe we get some extra help from them when they think something's about to go wrong. And it just puts the bug in somebody's ear that say, hey, maybe I don't want to do that in Harford County or the town of Bel Air. We can use it for things like, right now, one of the crime trends that we're having smash and grab crimes. And what's happening is these criminals, they're going all up the East Coast, and they're targeting places like the Ma and Pa Trail. They're targeting fitness clubs because they know that people leave their valuables in the car before they go in and work out. So we can get messages out to people that say, hey, you know, might not be a great idea to leave your valuables in the car, and make sure they're locked. Even in some of our developments, we have the smash and grabs. Lock your cars and don't leave your valuables in the car. We've even had people keep their guns in the car, which is unbelievable to me. But since my tenure here, I've had several handguns stolen from cars, which that's remarkable that somebody would think that, you know, they've forgotten. They're security people, sometimes law enforcement, which is a big no-no, but they've left their guns in their cars. So to get the message out, I think it's a great idea. Even for our events, preparing for our events, 4th of July, we have issues with people parking along Main Street. Get the message out beforehand. It would help us to say, hey, do not leave your cars. We don't want our Mr. Mike Bloom getting more stressed out. Put a
No.
message out to say, hey, do not leave your car on the county parking lot. We need to keep Mr. Bloom around for a little while. So I think it's a good idea, and yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all, and I appreciate you offering me the opportunity.
Okay, so
Yep.
do you want to report it every town hall, the first one of the month, every other?
What I'll do, and we look at all the crimes, if I see like a crime trend coming up, such as the smash and grabs, say, hey, you know, I'll pass it along to Mr. Hopkins and Ruth, and we can add it to the agenda. And,
Excellent.
go from there.
Excellent.
Or if you have something that you would like to discuss, maybe even like annual figures, much like I gave you in the commissioner orientation, to kind of like showcase, hey, we made a big difference here in our crime enforcement for the year. We can put that out there. So.
Okay, well,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, commissioners.
Right. And next, we have review and discuss the town policies and procedures. This was something I had talked to Mr. Krantz about. There are town policies and procedures that from time to time he copies and gives to me. And they are available on our laptops through the intranet. If you sign into your account, I think you have to create an account. They will be moving to Lexipol, but they're currently there. Most of them are not of particular interest to me, the ones about, you know, personnel and HR and that sort of thing. But there is a set of, that are of interest, and that involves the town commissioners and the appointment of town commissioners liaisons, for instance. You know, there is an appointment, and then it has to be voted on. So there are a few like that, and I am having trouble accessing it myself. Mike showed me how to do it the other day, but I might have to come in for an individual training session. So I just want everybody to know that there are some that exist that you might want to take a look at. And if you can't access it, Josh and/or Mike will help you.
Ma'am, I'd like to add something to that.
Yes, sir.
So on the police department page, by law now, we're required to have our policies up there. So every policy, if you go to, if you want to check out our police department page, the public can access all of our policies.
Wow,
Yep.
that is great. So that'll be easy to
Yeah.
access. I won't
There you
need
go.
Mr. Krantz to help me walk through where to look for it.
If you are having trouble sleeping one night, you know,
And currently, all of your policies are through Lexipol.
yes, ma'am.
And the towns are migrating there, but at the moment, some of them are on Lexipol and some of them are still on the intranet. And I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. There are a few things in there that every once in a while are an issue, for instance, how to appoint liaisons and voting on who is the chair, that sort of thing. So next we have, unless anybody has anything more to say on that, no. Discuss the timekeeping solutions for public comment, and that is Mr. Krantz. Oh, look at that. I'm impressed.
So I heard your request for a better timekeeping solution, because before, if someone was giving public comment, I would set my cell phone to alarm at either 3 or 5 minutes, and then it would ding, and I would have to call out, 1 minute, 30 seconds. So we spent $20, and we found this online, which I think is pretty nice. You might like it. I'm just going to set it down here. You can change the time at any given time, and it displays. Yeah, it displays on these screens right here. So if you would just click it down and get it started, you'll see it start to count down, and then we can change the. It'll give like a little ding at the end. It'll give a little "you're finished" message at the end. That's all customizable. It's very. You can hear that. And then it gives you a time's up message, and it would display, and it would have rectified the issue of having to shout out, where you're at and interrupting the person's train of thought. So if you're okay with this, the only thing that I have to say, it looks a little big on our big display screens.
Oh, I think it's great to have it big.
Okay.
The bigger the better. No one will have any trouble seeing it.
I could, minimize it
No.
if you felt.
Full
it was-
screen,
yeah.
full screen.
Okay.
And that is actually what they have at the county council as well, as a full screen
Okay.
thing. And it makes it easy for everyone to see whether they remembered their glasses or not.
Okay.
town colors, no less.
And in town colors.
That's great.
Mr. Krantz has outdone himself on this project.
Thanks to Mr. Josh, our IT director.
I had a feeling
who,
maybe Mr. Josh was involved.
Who found the application online. We discussed it, and he said, well, let me do some research, and he found this, and for $20, if we need to install it on some other department heads' laptops, because maybe they want to use it at the planning commission, and right now it's installed on my laptop, so for another $20, if Mr. Small needs it, or Angela, if you need it, or somebody else needs it, we can just spend another $20.
I would highly recommend it
Yeah.
for any commission that is having timed public comment. Because I have gotten complaints from people that, they're interrupted, and it really, it's really not the best of circumstances to have poor Ms. Thompson shouting, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, you're done. I think this is like a huge improvement, so.
Hey, Mike, does it does it send out like some static?
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
I just chose the little bing, and you're done. But we could choose that. We could change the message, you know.
Gotta wear a collar with spikes in you.
That's right.
You did a fabulous job in a very,
Yeah.
very short time period. That's wonderful. I'm thrilled. All
And
right.
that $20 won't affect our ARPA monies.
Yeah, $20. That was we probably got the biggest bang for our buck right there.
Right
That's
there.
great. Huge. So, public announcements. It is Harford County Restaurant Week 2024, beginning this Friday, January 19th to January 28th. This 10-day period will be an opportunity to check out some of the many fine bars, restaurants, and bakeries found throughout Harford County, including a number of establishments in the town of Bel Air. Check out Visit Harford's website for more details and a list of participating restaurants. Winter dance lessons, swing and rumba. If you haven't signed up for dance lessons at the Bel Air Armory, you have until January 23rd to do so. Tickets, which are available for purchase online, are $80 per person for the 6-week course in East Coast Swing Level 2 that begins on January 24th. The second course, Beginner Swing Intro to Rumba, is sold out. Visit either BelAirArmory.org or the Dance Lessons Winter 2024 page on Eventbrite to purchase tickets. Bel Air Lions and the Explorers Bingo. If you like playing bingo and want to support the Bel Air Police Department's Youth Explorer program, then we have just the thing. The Bel Air Lions and Explorer Post 9010 are hosting Bingo Night on Friday, January 26th at the Armory. The doors open at 6 p.m. and the games begin at 7. Visit BelAirLions.org to purchase tickets, which are $20 in advance and $25 at the door. All proceeds will benefit the Explorer Post. Instrument Petting Zoo. Young people ages 17 and younger who are interested in trying out a musical instrument can visit Musicland at 200 Gateway Drive from noon to 3 p.m. on Saturday, January 27th. No appointment is needed and admission is free. Visit the Maryland Center for the Arts website for more information. The Cultural Arts Commission will be meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m., Wednesday, January 17th, but I'm not sure of their location. The Armory. They will be meeting at the Armory. The Committee on Elderly and Needy Citizens will meet at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, January 24th in the Police Department Community Room. The Historic Preservation Commission will meet at 6 p.m. on Thursday, January 25th here at Town Hall. Visit BelAirMD.org to get copies of meeting agendas for the town's public bodies. And the Bel Air Town of Commissioners will meet Tuesday, January the 30th, here in Town Hall at 5:15? 5:15.
Madam Chair, may I add one to that, please? If you
Absolutely.
please? So as part of the Safe Streets Act, I know we didn't discuss it this evening, but I wanted to get this on everyone's radar, the public especially. Our consultant in coordination with Howard Degrees in Aberdeen, we have worked and have set dates for the public workshops to review the traffic and safety part of the Safe Streets grant, which will hopefully help to reduce injuries and deaths on our roads. Our workshop will occur on Monday, February the 12th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Bel Air Armory. We will be sending out flyers shortly and posting on the website and our social media platforms. We will also notify stakeholders in town directly through email. So I just want to make sure, get that on the radar so we can repeatedly announce that so we get as much participation from the public as possible. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing that on the website. I did see the email about that. All right, public comment. Anyone have any public comment they'd like to make?
Hello, my name is Scott Agar, and I reside at 306 Plantation Lane, Bel Air.
And let me just interrupt you for a moment. 3 minutes you have, or do you have 5 because you're speaking for?
I'm representing Tollgate Village,
There we
situated
go.
off of North Tollgate Road.
Thank you.
Apologies for our somewhat antisocial behavior. We are visiting someone who has respiratory compromise in 2 days. So, yesterday, you were provided with a third site for the Hartford Mall residences with the same date as those presented at the December Planning Commission meeting. This plan adds a 5-story apartment building and a 6-level parking garage to the 249-unit structure recently approved. And this was provided to me by Mr. Small last week. This is strikingly similar to the 300 apartments plus 250 Phase 2 indicated on a July 2022 meeting document The meeting was attended by Mr. Small for the Hartford Mall residences. Was this third plan the real plan all along? At the time, that project would have been non-compliant with town code. The definition of mixed-use center that was changed based on Planning Commission recommendations in January 2023 to the town board that were codified in July 2023. Only through this definition change did the recently approved Hartford Mall residences become compliant. Despite repeated requests, Mr. Small has been unable to produce any documentation to illustrate both planning and town commissioners were informed of the impact on the anticipated Hartford Mall residences application or any others by this definition change. The only reference in minutes was clarified, which doesn't seem to capture making a special development with what now appears to be 550 units compliant. Neither Mr. Small nor the developer provided this third site plan to the public at any time for public comment prior to approval. Withholding this plan from the public shocks the conscience and raises questions of good faith and full disclosure for those involved. I request the Board of Town Commissioners employ Maryland Land Use Article 3-205 C3, which states, quote, "The legislative body or other body having jurisdiction may overrule the decision of the Planning Commission by a recorded vote of at least 2/3 of its entire membership." I've provided a rationale roadmap for doing so in a 12/11/2023 document provided to Mr. Small and Chair Edding. I again request that the board consider a resolution or ordinance, by whichever way it's supposed to be done, to roll back the recent change in the definition of mixed-use center to that in effect prior to Ordinance 81323's passage. Please do the right thing. Thank you for your time without interruption.
Thank you, Ms. Yeager. Do we have any other public comment this evening? All right. In that case, we will move on to commissioners' comments. Any comments from any commissioners?
I'll keep this very brief. I just wanted to update the commission, my fellow commissioners, on some of the things that our wonderful team at Economic Development has been up to. There were two very successful business ribbon cuttings at the end of December after our last town hall meeting. One Menchie's over off Baltimore Pike, and the other Hartford Haven Studios down in the Gateway area. And obviously a comprehensive review of everything that happened in Q4 is in the Q4 Economic Development Report, but those two ribbon cuttings were particularly special. I was also joined by Commissioner Chismar at the ribbon cutting for the new Aberdeen Medical Facility, and Commissioners Chismar and Chance at the new Bel Air Bed Tower. So a lot of exciting celebrations happening in Bel Air. I attended my first meeting of the Appearance and Beautification Committee, which is a wonderful group of individuals who, those were the folks I was referencing earlier, when I don't think that I've met a single group more committed to this town than the ladies on ABC. That really is a spectacular group, some of whom are due for some reappointments. I know we'll be working on that soon. I also attended my first meeting of the Economic and Community Development Commission, where we had a very spirited and wonderful exchange about the vision for the town and some of the ordinances that have been under consideration. And I let them know that we will continue to take their advice and guidance very seriously. So that was a very productive conversation to get to know that group. There's a lot of brain power in that room, so I look forward to using them as a resource. And I just want to thank Angela for being a fantastic partner as I liaise with that department, and how open and very helpful she has been. So it's been a great great couple weeks settling into the role, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody that I get to work with.
Thank you very much. That was awfully nice.
I'm going to quickly second the motion about the work that economic development does in so many different areas. I met with Angela the other day, and just an amazing amount of work goes into what they do to continue to make the town viable, beautiful, all of it. So it's a lot of work, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? I do have, go ahead.
No,
I just wanted to say, thank you to the Department of Public Works. It was music to my ears last night. Every time I was awakened by the sound of that plow blade scraping the sidewalk, I knew everything was fine, and I would be able to get up, clean off my car, which took 2.5 hours to do the driveway, the car, and the sidewalks, and get out. But the roads were in terrific shape, so, you know, kudos to you and all the guys on the trucks who worked all night.
It was a good first event of the year. We had some rookies out there last night that haven't seen a snowstorm in a couple of years, so, I was holding my breath, and I think they came out with a good grade, so nobody got hurt, and we didn't crash any vehicles, and, put down a lot of salt, about $7,000 worth of salt. So the storm probably cost us in the range of 15 to 17,000 total dollars.
It was a good tune-up to get everybody ready for the big one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Bite my tongue. And I also wanted to say thank you to not just DPW for their work during that rainstorm when trees went down, but the police department who was there working hand in hand, calling in, you know, trees that have fallen over the road. I know there was one at, I think, McPhail and Atwood that was cleared very quickly.
Thank you, ma'am.
And also to the police department for their work in the terrible rainstorm shortly after Christmas, which was just an awful night to be
Yes,
out
yeah.
working a very serious crime scene, and,
Yeah, it was,
you know, kudos to them for all the
it
good
was a
work that
tough
they
month,
did.
yeah, but thank you very much for recognizing us. Yes.
So,
It's, just another little thing, my department, did a statistic the other day when they were getting me some information for my presentation tonight. We had that rain last Sunday when the Ravens played, and that was like 3.4 inches in town, and then with the 4 points, so we had nearly 8 inches of rain in 3 days in town, so it's been pretty wet.
and that coupled with the wind
Yeah,
didn't do the trees any good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Any further commissioners' comments? No? All right, in that case, we need a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
All right, so we will be closing under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, General Provisions, Article 3-305B1, to discuss the appointment of officials to the Cultural Arts Commission and the Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens. Because discussion in public of candidates' names, qualifications, experience, and background could discourage people from volunteering for public service or compromise their privacy rights. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Mr. Krantz?
To voting to close the session to discuss appointments to cultural arts and the Commission on the Elderly and Needy. Commissioner Rutledge, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in closed session. Please keep your microphones on mute and give me a moment to turn off the volume on the YouTube live stream, and I'll be right back in the room.
Madam Chair, if you're okay, I'd like to let staff go. That is not relevant, so whoever's not, Angela, you can stay, obviously, but if everyone else needs to. Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Chair Edding?
Aye.
Thank you, and the motion does carry.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk.
Wanted to
Mrs.
spread the
Taylor?
wealth there.
Chair Edding? Great, thank you, and the motion does carry.
Wanted to spread the wealth there.
Are we ready, Mr. Krantz? Ready, Mr. Krantz?
Oh, that would do that.
All right, there we go.
We're now back in open session.
Now that we are back in open session, we will move to appointment to the Cultural Arts Commission on our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that Donna Cahoe, who has served on the commission before, would be reappointed or appointed to the Cultural Arts Board
Se-
for a term of 3 years,
Second.
effective immediately.
I second that too.
All right, so the motion is that the appointment of Donna Cahoe to the Bel Air Cultural Arts Commission for a term of 3 years, effective immediately, be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners. Any discussion amongst the board? All right, in that case, Mr. Krantz, I will call the roll.
Okay, calling for the appointment of Donna Cahoe to Cultural Arts, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right, next we move to the appointments on the Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that oops, this is the motion. I'm getting all the motions right here now. I'd like to make the motion that the appointment of Vicky Bands to the Bel Air Committee on Elderly and Needy Citizens for a term of 3 years be effective immediately by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners. Are we voting on each one of these individually? All right.
There we go.
Second.
All right. And Mr. Krantz?
Second,
Call the roll.
voting for the appointment of Vicky Bands to the Committee on Elderly and Needy Citizens, Commissioner Rutledge, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion passes.
I would like to make the motion that the appointment of Barry Klein to the Bel Air Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens for a term of 3 years, effective immediately, be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Second.
Mr. Krantz?
Voting on
Vicky Bands.
No, that was.
No, I'm sorry.
This is Barry
Barry,
Klein.
voting on
I'm sorry.
Barry Klein
Yeah.
for appointment to the Elderly and Needy Commission, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance, or,
Aye.
excuse me, Commissioner Chismar, out
Aye.
of order, Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Yep. And last but not least, I make the recommendation that the appointment of Jasmine Stock to the Bel Air Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens for a term of 3 years, effective immediately, be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Second.
Mr. Krantz?
This is the vote on the appointment of Jasmine Stock to the Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right. We have now reached the end of our agenda and are adjourned.
Thank you.
Once the agenda has